Same thing. That's why, they went to the suburbs and say, get away from the black people. So they got away, They cordoned them off in the ghetto and whatnot. Keep them over there, down on that side of town, on the other side of the tracks. And so we out here in the suburbs, so, now we're here. And, we mow the lawn, water the flowers, and, feed the birds and all that, walk the dog. Okay, Dagwood and Blondie. Okay, so they do that, and they do that, and they do that, but, hey, this is getting boring. Let's go back and gentrify where the niggers are.
And Closer Look continues from WABE in Atlanta. I'm Rose Scott. The Atlanta region, and when I say region, I'm talking about the 11 counties that make up this Atlanta region. Well, the population growth is, quote, as we hear from the ARC, fueled by ongoing strong employment growth. Okay, they say jobs in the region have increased 5.4% since the pandemic began back in 2020, obviously. And they say, listen, more people means more promises, right? Well, more people, more promises for increased community property values and investment. And it usually comes with those grand developments and major companies that come to town, right? That's all good news. But a new report says, look, many residents in the predominantly black neighborhoods are questioning the benefits these incentivized developments have on communities of color. And this report is from the Partnership for Southern Equity. And so I'm joined now by, I guess it took three of them to get the point across because they're all here in studio. Sterling Johnson is the Just Opportunity Portfolio Director. William Smith is the lead researcher. And Nathaniel Smith, who's been a contributor to the program for so many years, he's the founder and chief equity officer. Welcome to you all.
Thank you.
Hello, Rose.
Thank you, Rose.
So I just had a conversation about, teacher shortages. There's a number of reasons for that. But when we talk about a community, any community in this Atlanta region that has economic development, that has all this great stuff coming, Nathaniel, I'll start with you. You all say, perhaps there's not equity, and this wouldn't be new. There's not equity when you talk about the benefits to the community. Sum up what you all were doing with this report.
So for us, and again, I'm really excited to hear Sterling and his colleague talk a lot about the specifics. And for me, the most important thing that I wanted to share is that when it comes down to the investment of public dollars, we should do all we can to ensure that all of the public have an opportunity to return on that investment. Mm-hmm. That if we're going to create tax incentives and opportunities for individuals to be attracted to this city, whether it be around economic development opportunities, the attraction of talent, of businesses, that the resources that were utilized or the tax incentives or breaks that were utilized to attract that talent or resources, right, should also be sensitive to the needs of the people who invested their resources to attract those communities. So
Sterling, and I might ask William this too, so when we talk about this return on the investment for a community, did Nathaniel hit it in terms of what it should look like? What is that return on investment to a community? What should it look like? Sterling, I'll let you start.
I think at a lot of the time it's really dependent on the community, right? Like when we talk about the agency that needs to be reflected in making sure that there's self-determination in what community needs are, how that's reflected in new development that's occurring around them. Oftentimes development happens to community and not with community and alongside them. And so a lot of that's going to vary from community to community, but can look like everything from workforce programs to business development programs, child care assistance, educational resources. I mean, it could be any one of those following.
And William, for years, I've always talked about when we talk about community benefits and that perhaps they should be binding. Mm-hmm. And then folks from other areas look at me and roll their eyes because they will say, no big development, no developer, no, they don't want to be bound by something like an agreement with community benefits. But if we had something like that, would it really kind of fix some of the issues we're about to talk about?
They can in many instances. I think that when you start thinking about community benefits, the perception is that developers don't want to enter into those type of agreements. But by and large, you have a lot of communities and a lot of developers who are community minded. Mm-hmm. And so they are willing to do the things that are necessary in order to make an impact within the community. And if that is positive and they know how to do that, then they're going to do that. I think what ultimately needs to be addressed is, do we have someone to shepherd the developer in the proper way so that the impact goes to the right place.
Well, let's get some definition here for some listeners, because we're going to talk about TADs. And if I could take a class on understanding TADs, I would, but that's why y'all are here. When we talk about TADs, from folks, it's the tax allocation developments, understanding how they work. Who wants to take that and give the kindergarten definition of that?
Sure. So a tax allocation district is really a blight buster, if you will. And so if you look at how the legislation is set up, you have to declare the area where a TAD is going to be a blight. And you can look at a few different indicators to kind of determine that. But once a blight has been declared, that TAD is really there to be a catalytic agent and to restore the market if the market isn't working properly.
Is it solely community, or could it be, for example, just a block? And I'm like, Ponce City Market before, it was a blight because it was a building that was dilapidated and falling apart. But that community necessarily wasn't a blighted community, but Lord knows that building was.
Yes.
So or is that the same thing?
Yes. And so it depends. In a TAD, you have to really be careful because it's a tool. Mm-hmm. And how you use a tool determines how that tool is effective and what that tool ultimately does. In the case of your example of Ponce City Market, if the community got together and said that the TAD resources should only be dedicated to the revitalization of that building, mm-hmm. then that's a great use of that TAD. Okay. But you can also have projects and instances where a TAD says we're going to try to revitalize or kickstart an entire area, and that could be acceptable as well.
In this report, who did you all talk to, and what information did you want to gather?
We talked to a little bit of everybody, mm-hmm. right? I think we got out into the community. We heard from different community partners, different organizations. We did focus groups with residents. We heard from and did different types of surveys. We asked them about what was their perception of development as it was occurring around them, right? We asked them about history, right? What was the history of the community that they lived in? How have they seen that change?
Oh, my goodness, what'd you hear?
Oh, man, well, if you've been in Atlanta long enough, you've heard the stories, right? And I think everybody, even
some folks, you got to say it louder.
They see the change.
Yeah.
They feel the displacement. They see the way that their neighbors have been displaced. They see the institutions that they became accustomed to no longer being available to them, and they feel that in a very tangible way.
But that's not new. And Nathaniel, listen, I moved here in '96, and this has been going on before I got here, so it's not new. So is it something that has to change in terms of how we incentivize these developments? Is something have to change within city government? What you're saying is not new. How do we enact change?
Well, I think one of the big challenges is that we face is more cultural than economic, right? And what I mean by that is, the culture of economic development measures success based off of two primary things. One, does this economic development strategy increase the tax base of a particular community? Mm-hmm. And two, does this strategy either bring more jobs or businesses into the community? But the challenge is that unfortunately a lot of times those things are done to communities and not with communities. And on many occasions, the hunger for the accumulation of tax rolls, the hunger for a growth as it relates to the amount of resources that government may have to spend dollars on whatever they want to spend, it minimizes the ability for people to really understand the effects of those decisions on the most vulnerable.
Can we give an example? Are you comfortable in giving an example right now in terms of a project and a community where that has happened?
The Beltline.
The Beltline.
I mean, come on, Rose. I mean, that's an underhanded pitch, right? I mean, because if you look at the opportunities, really,
I was going to say the Gulch.
Well, the Gulch.
It's the next one.
But we have or the Stitch project. I mean, or you could talk about Ponce City Market or the Beltline Park. I mean, all of these opportunities are utilizing public dollars and tax abatements to accumulate the type of resources that are required to develop these communities. But again, if you're not focused on how this will support the people and not just places, then what we're primarily doing is positioning people to subsidize their own displacement.
Do you know why I was given this job?
Because you're super duper smart.
Yes, but why?
Because you went to Harvard.
Yes.
Yep.
But why would they want a super duper smart guy who went to Harvard?
Tonight, Harvard President Claudine Gay back in the hot seat over more allegations of plagiarism. First reported by the student newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, the leader will request 3 corrections to her PhD dissertation from 1997, less than a week after the university announced Gay submitted 4 corrections to other articles she'd published, due to a review by Harvard's governing body. In a statement to multiple news outlets, Harvard says the university reviewed more of Gay's academic work, and that the president plans to update her dissertation to correct instances of, quote, inadequate citation, stopping short of calling it plagiarism.
It makes my blood boil. I have never heard of a situation where you're supposed to go back and make corrections.
Dr. Carol Swain, a former political science professor at Vanderbilt University. The original Crimson investigation found 2 passages in Gay's writing similar to hers. She says they were plagiarized by Gay.
Anyone caught in the situation that she's in should immediately be dismissed, or they should resign. And I'm kind of miffed with her, because she's been caught red-handed.
Given that this is appearing to be a repeated offense on her end, I mean, are you concerned, or how does it make you feel that Harvard is calling it inadequate citation?
Well, I think it's elitism. They're going to redefine plagiarism to protect one of their own. Something about their elitism, that they don't believe that they have to meet the same standards as everyone else.
Gay has not responded to NBC News' request for comment, but she previously told the Boston Globe, "I stand by the integrity of my scholarship. Throughout my career, I have worked to ensure my scholarship adheres to the highest academic standards." This development prompting a House committee to widen an existing probe of Harvard over anti-Semitism after Gay seemed to dodge a question over whether students calling for the genocide of Jews should be punished.
I have sought to confront hate while preserving free expression. This is difficult work, and I know that I have not always gotten it right.
That probe will now include an investigation into allegations of plagiarism. The Education and Workforce Committee chairwoman, Representative Virginia Fox, sent a letter to Harvard demanding more information about the unequal application of Harvard's honor code, adding an allegation of plagiarism by a top school official at any university would be reason for concern, but Harvard is not just any university. It styles itself as one of the top educational institutions in the country.
And Mara joins us now from Chicago. So just last week, Harvard was taking steps to clear Gay and move past this. Could these latest allegations and now the expanded House probe change that?
Ellison, it's likely it will, and it's already been such a tumultuous few months for the Harvard president. Remember, her appointment was historic just at the beginning of the semester a few months ago. But this House probe really highlights concerns over whether those that are working in higher education are held to a higher standard or a different standard than the students that they're teaching. And so the House has asked for documentation about the allegations around plagiarism and the independent review, and they're asking for all of those before December 29th. Allison?
Mara Barrett in Chicago, thank you.
Hitler had the supreme fascist state. And what was he worried about in Europe and in Germany? He was worried about white genetic annihilation. What is everybody in Europe worried about now? Why genetic annihilation? All these people from Syria coming up in here.
This year, the U.S. encountered a record number of migrants at the southern border, 2.5 million people. That has strained many resources across the country, and it's already pushed immigration front and center in the upcoming presidential election. Jasmine Garst is NPR's immigration correspondent, and she's here to recap this year and to look ahead for us. Hey, Jasmine.
Hi.
Hi. So, okay, before we look ahead, let's look behind a little. What has been driving this record number of people showing up at the southern border?
So there's been a historic rise in the number of displaced people around the world. I spent so much of this last year talking to migrants from all walks of life. A Venezuelan pharmacist sleeping in line to get into a shelter in New York City, a Kurdish English teacher crossing the California border, a Russian doctor who I met in Tijuana. He was in line to request asylum. His sons were entering the age of military service. And this is what he kept saying to me.
Russia, it's so difficult. I can't describe it. It's so difficult for me. Catastrophe.
catastrophe. And I think it's an apt description for the situation of migrants at the border.
Well, how has the Biden administration been responding to the situation?
Biden's policy has been twofold. On the one hand, punish migrants who cross the border undocumented by making it more difficult to get asylum, which is controversial because a person fleeing danger might not have time to fill out an application to enter the U.S.
Yeah.
He also has made more pathways for migrants to enter legally into the U.S., and he's expanded humanitarian parole and temporary protected status. Republicans say this all signals that the door is wide open for immigrants and that it's been a mess.
Well, I mean, Republicans criticizing the Biden administration for its immigration policies isn't a surprise, but I know that there were some responses from Republican governors this year that were quite unprecedented, right? Can you talk about those?
Absolutely. So starting in 2022, Republicans like Texas Governor Greg Abbott and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis started busing migrants to New York, Boston, Chicago, and they kept doing that this year. New York alone has received over 150,000 migrants and said it's at capacity and started putting people out of shelters, which is shaping up to be a crisis of its own. So as we enter the election year, Republican presidential candidates are pointing to those cities as examples of Biden's bad immigration policy. Here's former President Donald Trump promising widespread deportations.
And following the model of President Eisenhower, we will use all necessary federal, state, local, and military resources to begin the largest domestic deportation effort in American history.
Now, pretty much every single Republican candidate is saying they want to end birthright citizenship, meaning if an undocumented immigrant has a child in the U.S., that child cannot be a citizen. Legal scholars have pointed out that this would be unconstitutional. In fact, a lot of what is being promised on the campaign trails would probably be challenged in courts. But the rhetoric has been totally unprecedented. I mean, former President Donald Trump talking about immigrants, quote, poisoning the blood of our country. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis talking about sending military into Mexico.
I mean, but meanwhile, recent polls are showing President Biden lagging behind former President Trump. So how has Biden been addressing any criticisms about his immigration policies?
Well, the Biden administration has definitely felt the pressure, but probably the biggest sign of a shift is the ongoing negotiations in Congress. Recently, Biden requested aid for Ukraine and Israel, and Republicans are demanding that in exchange, applying for and receiving asylum at the border be more difficult and that there be more deportations. And it's significant that the White House appears willing to negotiate, which would mean a huge shift in the nation's asylum policy. So we're going to have to see what happens when Congress returns in January.
That is NPR's Jasmine Gartz. Thank you so much, Jasmine.
Thank you for having me.
Together, we will make America strong again. We will make America wealthy again. We will make America proud again. We will make America safe again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
Violent rhetoric is raging in some corners of the internet after this week's historic ruling from the Colorado Supreme Court.
Yeah, after judges barred Donald Trump from the state's primary ballot, some supporters of the former president are fuming over the decision, and people online have begun circulating personal information about Colorado Supreme Court justices who ruled against Trump. Some are even calling for civil war.
NPR domestic extremism correspondent Odette Youssef is here to tell us more. I was reading some of this, Odette, and I thought, I've seen all this before. And then I thought to myself, that's not good.
Yeah, I mean, on some of these far-right platforms, this kind of talk is everyday stuff. But when there are events that affect Trump adversely, whether it's an indictment or, say, the search of his property at Mar-a-Lago, it spikes. And so this time, we're seeing claims online that this is a Democratic Party conspiracy to interfere in the election. We're seeing calls to arm up or to hurt or even kill perceived political foes. So far, people monitoring these spaces say they're not seeing indications of a credible or imminent threat, but they also caution that this doesn't mean it should be ignored.
So, authorities still want to be watchful then.
Of course. I mean, you may recall, that after the Mar-a-Lago search, for example, online rhetoric heated up, and there was an individual who attacked an FBI field office in Cincinnati. So it is important to understand how the baseline threat level is evolving. One person I spoke to who's been keeping an eye on this online activity is Daniel J. Jones. He's with the nonpartisan nonprofit Advanced Democracy. He says he's not just watching the uptick in violent language.
I think it's equally concerning that we're not seeing pushback against this language. We're not seeing pushback against dehumanizing language from the presumptive Republican nominee. We're not seeing pushback from language from political leaders on the right. We're seeing the mainstreaming of this extremism and this encouragement of violence in right-wing media.
And I hear this across the board when I speak to extremism researchers. What they are concerned about is violence from the right. And they say that if high-profile figures would just clearly disavow that violence that some are calling for, it could really help bring the temperature down.
But when it comes to this ruling in Colorado, I mean, many are expecting that the ruling from that court may not be the final word on this. So any acknowledgement of that?
Yes. In fact, I spoke with Catherine Keneally of another organization, the Institute for Strategic Dialogue, and she said she noticed this.
We did also see a large number of people post statements that they weren't concerned because they believe that the U.S. Supreme Court is going to shoot it down anyways. So a common refrain that I started seeing was the use of nothing burger.
Even absent violence, this is still very concerning to people who care about democracy, right? Because, even when threats of violence against judges, voters, really anyone participating in civic life become normal, that can have a chilling effect.
That's NPR's Odette Youssef. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Right now, the sound of my voice is causing a lot of brain activity in an area just above your ear. That's where your brain processes spoken language. NPR's John Hamilton reports on a team of scientists who are using a new technology to study the cells that make this possible.
The human brain recognizes speech instantly and without apparent effort. Dr. Eddie Chang, a neurosurgeon at the University of California, San Francisco, is part of a team that's been trying to understand how our brains do this.
It's a really remarkable feat, translating the sounds that we hear that come in through our ears into things that we understand, like words.
The team studied 8 patients having a type of brain surgery that requires them to remain conscious. During the operation, surgeons temporarily implanted a new kind of probe in an area of the cortex, the brain's outer layer, that is critical for speech perception. Then the patients listened to dozens of recordings that included all the speech sounds of American English.
It was nobody's fault.
Have you got enough blankets?
Yet they thrived on it. Junior, what on earth's the matter with you?
Meanwhile, the probe, which is roughly the size and shape of an eyelash, was monitoring nearly 700 individual brain cells. Chang says these cells are highly organized.
There is, in fact, a map where specific spots along that cortex are actually tuned to different speech sounds, like the different parts of consonants and vowels.
Some cells respond to ah sounds, while others wait for an o or b or k. The researchers had used an older technology to map these cells across the surface of the cortex, but the new probe offered a 3-dimensional view that included cells beneath the surface. The scientists thought these deeper cells might respond to the same speech sounds as those on the surface, but Chang says that's not what they found.
When you eavesdrop on the activity of hundreds of them across this depth of the cortex, there's actually a tremendous amount of diversity.
So just beneath the cells responding to an ah sound, there could be cells tuned to b or k.
And what that means is that speech sounds, the different parts of consonants and vowels, are being processed by cells that are literally microns apart.
Chang says this organization may help the brain process speech sounds quickly and efficiently. The study appears in the journal Nature. And David Popel, a neuroscientist at New York University and the Max Planck Institute in Germany, says it addresses some basic questions about how the human brain processes language.
What is the parts list? And how are those parts put together to make it so smooth and easy to speak, to listen, and to connect the stuff that you say to the ideas in your head?
Popel says the study looked at only one brain area in just a few patients. Even so, it shows the potential of a technology that can monitor hundreds of individual neurons instead of just a few.
Every time you get a finer way to measure something, let's say a better microscope, you discover a new layer of interesting information, right? So it's more and more fine-grained.
The research adds to the evidence that the human brain is organized to recognize individual speech sounds rather than entire words or sentences. Popel says that seems to confirm an idea that dates back nearly a century.
The idea is that there's actually an organization of speech sounds that is quite abstract, but that holds for all languages. Because the challenge is, of course, well, we're speaking American English right now, but that's very different from, say, Norwegian.
Or Urdu, or a Bantu language. Popel says what all those languages have in common is a set of speech sounds that the brain can transform into meaningful words and sentences. John Hamilton, NPR News.
The Watcher, the Watcher, the Watcher, the Watcher.
The race toward AI is only getting hotter, and some consumers are already paying the price. Rite Aid, the pharmacy many of us go to every day, has officially been banned from using facial recognition technology for the next 5 years. The FTC said the drugstore chain repeatedly misused its surveillance systems and falsely identified thousands of innocent customers, labeling them shoplifters. That includes an 11-year-old girl who was stopped and searched by store employees. According to the AP, Rite Aid said it disagrees with the allegations, but it is glad it reached an agreement and resolved the issue. My friend and colleague, NBC News tech correspondent Jake Ward joins me now. Jake, problem one. I don't think anybody knew when they walked into a Rite Aid there was facial recognition technology tracking them. What in the world happened here?
Well, that's right. I mean, between 2012 and 2020, if you were in one of the major cities that was covered by this program, then, yeah, you would walk into a Rite Aid in a place like Baltimore, Philadelphia, San Francisco, and you would be sucked up into a facial recognition system, not only that you didn't know about, but that according to this FTC complaint, the employees of Rite Aid were instructed not to tell you about. Now, I've been speaking to people, close to the original project and learning some really interesting things about it. And really, the reason this is so fascinating as a tech story, Steph, is that it really mirrors something that we see time and again, which is that this began with these sort of lofty ambitions, this idea that you could create this very sort of invisible, high-fidelity, very powerful system that would create a very high-quality database of images to find repeat shoplifters. And then rather than grab them, humiliate them, even arrest them, the theory was that you would just walk up to them and say very politely, "May I help you, ma'am? May I help you, sir?" And by doing so, they would become sort of embarrassed and leave. That was the original concept. But we're in a world, Steph, where, as you have seen and we have talked about over and over again, right, worker satisfaction, the number of workers actually working in a retail environment are shrinking, morale is low, training is low, and into that environment this went, and suddenly workers were improvising. This ad hoc system began to be developed where they were simply grabbing people out of line, people who were very often misidentified, humiliating them in front of their friends, their colleagues, even calling the police on them. And so you saw this very sort of high-minded, ambitious program devolve into something that nobody really intended, and the FTC had to step in there and say enough is enough, Steph.
Okay, well, the FTC stepped in. So you might think this is a positive step, but it doesn't do anything going forward protecting consumers from other companies I mean, it just seems like this is a huge privacy violation and we're all completely exposed without new regulation.
Well, it's very interesting. I think you're absolutely right in terms of regulations, right? We still in this country do not have any actual data privacy protections, any data transparency protections, except that the FTC is stepping in here and saying a couple of really interesting things. And these things are new, and this is why it's so notable. One is they're saying you have to be able to prove on an ongoing basis. This is talking to Rite Aid, of course, but people I've been speaking to close to the FTC say that this is going to be the standard going forward in everything that they try and push for, that you're going to have to prove that this works, not just in the lab, not just in theory, but you got to prove on an ongoing basis that this works in the real world. They're saying this is going to be the end of live experimentation on all of us, which we've seen before now. And the other big one here is that Rite Aid loses that data, right? That all of those faces in the database have to be wiped. That's part of this order. And that is a big deal in the bigger world of things like AI, where companies might, make a mistake with all that data and then come back and try again. Well, in this case, Rite Aid does not get to try again. I've also been talking to people who say, close to the industry, who say that other big retailers who've been experimenting with facial recognition are suddenly so worried about being painted with the brush of appearing racist in the results, the way that Rite Aid wound up doing so, that they are in fact pulling back from facial recognition. They'd rather take the hit of shoplifting than worry about that kind of public image issue, because it can absolutely destroy shareholder value. So there's something positive here and big, I think, moving in tech stuff.
Positive, big, and really messy. Jake Ward, you make us smarter on this stuff every time you're here, and it's important because it's complicated and it's happening every single day.
Working in a chocolate factory, looking at chocolate being churned all day, and out there trying to churn chocolate at night.
Oompa loompa doopa dee doo. Jeffrey's stirring up some chocolate for you. Oompa loompa doopa dee dee. He worked at the Ambrosia Chocolate Factory. What would you bet Jeffrey guzzled down meat? Eating a bunch of the fellows he'd meet. If Jeff was a cat and Matt was a rat, what do you think will come of that?
Many of us give and eat a lot of chocolates this time of year. One Kansas City-based company has helped turn that into a tradition. More from KCUR's Laura Ziegler.
Russell Stover's chocolates are about more than candy. They're about the smell of velvety milk chocolate when you open a box, the giddiness of getting a gift, the memory of your grandmother's warm embrace. At least that's what the 100-year-old company wants their product to mean.
Outside of this box of Russell Stover chocolates, life has changed in the last 70 years. But inside, very little has changed.
Kansas City resident Pat O'Neill remembers how his grandmother brought a box of Russell Stover's mixed chocolates to the 7 O'Neill boys every year. As the oldest, he got the coveted first pick.
Back off, you guys. I got the caramel, right? But, you had to find it first. And so in our house, every box of Russell Stover candies, you could tell what it was by just turning it over, because somebody had already put a thumbnail into it to see what it was.
In the early 1900s, Russell Stover had been working with other candy companies and studying chemistry at the University of Iowa when he was asked to create a chocolate-covered ice cream bar. He succeeded and named the novelty the Eskimo Pie. They sold 1 million bars the first year. The next year, sales doubled. Russell Stover turned down buyout offers, the craze wore off, and sales plummeted. With their limited profits, the Stovers moved to Denver and started Mrs. Stover's Bungalow Candies, sprinkling bungalow-style retail stores across the Midwest. They opened a store here in 1927, buying an ad in the Kansas City Star to celebrate. Here's what that newspaper copy said.
She's hungry. Girls always are, but Mrs. Stover's Bungalow Candies offers an economical way to keep her happy and contented. These delicious chocolates and bonbons...
The ad went on to urge consumers not to be high-hatted to buy a box at 75 cents a pound. This year, the company's been celebrating its 100th year with a nationwide marketing campaign, anticipating my visit to Russell Stover's corporate headquarters just east of the Country Club Plaza. Patrick Katok and Tammy Parr of the marketing team have laid out a mountain of candy. Whoa, did you do this all for me? Yeah. Chocolate Easter bunnies of all sizes, chocolate marshmallow pumpkins and Santas, those little chocolate coconut bird nests with 3 jelly bean eggs, many red cellophane-covered heart-shaped boxes. After Christmas and Easter, the company's third busiest holiday is Valentine's Day, and Katak says almost half of the Valentine's chocolate in the country is Russell Stover's.
Roughly 40% of sales that is done during Valentine's in the confectionery category is us. The last week leading up to Valentine's, right? A lot of men are procrastinators. We see a massive spike.
Katak says their market research tells them more than 3/4 of candy consumers recognize the Russell Stover brand. It's in your local grocery store, your drugstore, and it's affordable.
You've got some products out there that are super premium products, maybe these artisanal stuff, but that's not our soul. We want to be widely available to all consumers. We want everybody to be able to participate in the holidays.
In fact, one of Kansas City's most well-known chocolatiers says it was Russell Stover's candy that laid the foundation for the super premium artisanal stuff he now makes.
Hey, let's try lavender. That would be fun.
Christopher Elbow's cases are filled with colorful hand-painted bonbons in flavors like rosemary or Vietnamese cinnamon. Elbow founded his company in Kansas City 30 years ago. Now he travels globally to source native beans and other ingredients, insisting on fair trade practices. He says Russell Stover's gave chocolate mass appeal and carved out a space for boutique chocolatiers like him.
I don't think I would have the opportunity to be doing what I do today had it not been for them.
Like so many others, Elbow feels family and tradition in that predictable assortment of buttercreams and caramels.
I've got great memories of it with my grandma. She always had a box of Russell Stovers in her house.
And while artisanal chocolates like Elbow's might be trendy in certain circles, Russell Stover sales still increased 10% last year, approaching $500 million. That's a lot of chocolate Santas, bunnies, and hearts. For KCUR 89.3, I'm Laura Ziegler.
You don't buy nothing to impress anybody, ever. A diamond ring. I mean, what do you do with that? Just look at it. Hey, man, look at that. Ain't that shiny and whatnot? Well, so what? Don't spend your money on nothing like that, ever. Try to figure out something to invest in, even if it's just the stock market, if you know how to do it, and increase your money.
Let's say I'm buying myself a nice winter coat online. When I'm going to check out, I might encounter an option from a company like Klarna or Affirm to pay for this coat in 4 installments with 0 interest. More consumers are flocking to buy now, pay later services. But while they aren't the same as putting a purchase on a credit card, they do come with some strings. Here to tell us more about how these services work is WSJ reporter Angel Ao-Young. Angel, a lot of people are familiar with these buy now, pay later brands, especially if you shop online, Afterpay, Affirm, Klarna. Do they all basically work the same way?
Essentially, these buy now, pay later firms are the same. They operate in different industries and different retailers. So specific retailers like Walmart might have a partnership with Affirm where they only offer Affirm as the buy now, pay later checkout option, but they are more or less the same.
How do these companies make money?
So they make money in various ways. They do charge interest rates on consumers. In a lot of the marketing messaging for these buy now, pay later companies, you'll see things like pay for this jacket in 4 installments interest free. But what most consumers quickly learn is that these companies, depending on who the shopper is, who the retailer is, they can offer annual interest rates from 0% to actually 36%. At the end of the day, they are technology companies. With a firm's underwriting process, their algorithm in figuring out what type of payment plans users get, that is their magic sauce. And that's proprietary. They don't share that with the public. The other way is you've got these retailers who will actually pay a fee to these buy now, pay later companies so that they can offer 0% interest rates or lower interest rate payment plans to shoppers. And the reason why retailers would want to pay these firms a fee is if you can offer shoppers a payment plan with a 0% interest rate and it allows them to stretch out that form of payment instead of instantly pay for it, that actually helps drive and convert more sales for the retailers.
Do these companies check your credit?
So they do pull soft credit checks on shoppers. And soft credit checks are designed to not appear on your credit report, but it pulls some information that's similar to a hard credit check, which are checks that you would usually need for applying for a traditional credit card or a mortgage loan. They also take into account the shopper's transaction history with the buy now, pay later lenders. If you, Alex, you've had a history of making your payments on time, then the likelihood of you getting that 0% payment plan will be higher than somebody who hasn't made their payments on time.
So what's the big appeal here for people? Is it that they can use these services almost like a credit card, but it doesn't impact their credit score?
That's definitely a big factor that we heard about from sources when we interviewed them to ask them why they would choose a buy now, pay later lender over, say, a traditional credit card. One of the sources that we spoke to, she said she and her husband are trying to save for a house. And they were trying to keep their credit balances on their credit cards low so that they could apply for a mortgage at a favorable rate.
These services have been around for a while, right? What's changed about how and when consumers are deciding to use buy now, pay later?
You're right. These buy now, pay later lenders have been around for more or less a decade, but they really exploded in popularity in the last couple years, particularly during the pandemic when a lot of people turned to online shopping. And these companies have done a really good job of embedding themselves onto those online checkout pages. And they've been smart with creating partnerships with big retailers to make it really obvious to consumers that you can check out with Affirm or Afterpay or Klarna. And the consumer watchdog groups that I spoke to, they liken this moment as the Big Bang moment for the buy now, pay later industry. It's really exploded in popularity, and there's a growing population of millennials and older generations who are now finding these buy now, pay later lenders attractive for not just that $200 jacket, but for the $450 grocery basket at Walmart, or, the $4,300 laser eye surgery.
Are buy now, pay later services ultimately a good deal for consumers or not such a good deal?
It really depends. If you are smart with understanding what terms you're signing up for, then they can be really helpful in the sense that if you are living paycheck to paycheck and you need a larger rainy day fund, then this potentially can be a way for you to control how much you're spending monthly so that you have more liquidity to address any kind of emergencies that might come up. But that takes a great deal of self-control on the consumers. And essentially what these buy now, pay later lenders are doing are they're giving an opportunity for consumers to potentially overextend themselves.
That was our reporter, Angel Ao Young.
Now everybody's like, jails ain't tough enough. Jails ain't tough enough. We got to have a death penalty. Jails ain't tough enough.
The holidays are often about trying to spend time with family, which can be tough when you have family in jail. And it's become even tougher because jails have been switching to video visitation systems. NPR's Martin Costi reports on a movement to bring back in-person visits.
Prisons are mostly back to the visiting rules they had before the pandemic, but jails, where people are held for shorter periods, usually before trial, not so much.
There's no more eye-to-eye, face-to-face visitation.
David McFadden is with the Sheriff's Office in Craven County, North Carolina. The jail there has switched to a remote video system, which he says saves everybody time and effort.
The inmates themselves don't have to leave the cell block, so it takes less personnel to have to go and bring them to another area where there was the face-to-face visitation, and also screen the visitors coming into the facility.
Family members no longer come to the jail at all. They can connect from home through a contract video service. It costs $8 for 20 minutes. Video visiting systems have been gaining ground in jails for years, but during COVID, video became the only option, and now many jails are reluctant to bring the in-person option back. Wanda Bertram is with the Prison Policy Initiative.
In Michigan, for example, we recently obtained some data about the availability of in-person visits and found that the vast majority of jails have eliminated.
There are no national statistics tracking the visiting rules for all the thousands of locally run jails, but Bertram says the trend seems clear.
Not only are jails cutting back on in-person visits, they're now building new facilities to exclude that possibility entirely.
The jails that have done this say video allows inmates more time to visit with family, even outside normal jail visiting hours. But is video time the same as in-person time? Nika Jones-Tapia says no. She's a psychologist who once ran Chicago's massive Cook County Jail. And when she was a little girl, her father was incarcerated.
I recall back in the 80s visiting my father and being able to bring food and just being able to have more normalized experiences with my dad helped us to maintain our bond.
That was a minimum security prison. Jails today are far less permissive. But Tapia is trying to create exceptions to that. She's now with the nonprofit Chicago Beyond, which is working to replicate around the country a program that Cook County Jail created for visiting families.
They walk into a visitation space that is more colorful. It has bright lighting and has games and activities so that the incarcerated parents, the caretakers who have brought the children and the children can engage in family play.
Tappy says this may involve extra effort, but that's made up for by the positive outcomes for everybody, including the corrections officers, who tend to volunteer for this more upbeat duty. Julie Paleman at the University of Wisconsin-Madison studies families of incarcerated people, and she says the research has found that these in-person contact visits have long-term benefits for kids and parents. But she's not necessarily down on video visits per se.
They're not a bad supplement, and also, especially if they're done remotely, so like a kid in a family could like stay home or be in a comfortable place, or if they're offered, for free, I think that can help, but I don't think it should ever be a replacement.
At least one state, Massachusetts, agrees with this. In 2018, it passed a law saying video visits are okay as long as inmates are still guaranteed the in-person option. But nationally, the momentum is toward video. Back in Craven County, Major McFadden is not surprised.
Our whole society and socialization has changed now where, incredibly, many people do communicate when they're not incarcerated, FaceTiming with their smartphones or their computers.
And in a jail, he welcomes that change. He'd rather not have kids coming to visit. He thinks it's just too traumatic. And with the switch to video, he says kids can potentially have more time with a parent the same way they're now connecting to the rest of the world through a screen. Martin Costi, NPR News.
I ever tell you about the first time I leave the state of Georgia?
When was that?
A few minutes back. Yes. Now, my daughter, she's married to a Pullman porter, She's always on the go. York, Detroit, St. Louis. I said, well, now that's all well and good, Tommy Lee, but I just don't feel the need for it. So here it is. First time. And I might tell you, Miss Daisy, Alabama ain't looking like much so far.
A Birmingham City Schools parent says an assistant principal assaulted and degraded her son. The district says that assistant principal is on administrative leave right now.
And that student recently learning he will spend the next 2 months in alternative school. And our James Giles joins us now after speaking with his mom tonight. James, how did this all start and how does she feel about this and what will happen next?
Well, Brittany, Steve, we're told this whole incident started with a vape. The mom is choosing to remain anonymous, but she says she wants the Jackson Olin High School administrator fired. She also says hopefully her son learns from this entire ordeal.
Putting your hands around a student's neck, biting their finger, kicking them in the face, like that is not how you restrain a child.
But according to this Jackson Olin High School parent, who is choosing to remain anonymous, that's exactly what happened with her son, Jaden Borden. In this video, you can see a fight between Borden and a man who she says is the school's assistant principal, Charles Ludgood. Several videos like this one are floating around from this day earlier this month.
A vape was involved, and, instead of him, coming to him as an adult would as a child, he approached him kind of aggressively, using curse words and also using the N-word as well.
Birmingham City Schools has not officially released the administrator's name, only saying he's on administrative leave. However, the school's website no longer has a picture or bio information on Ludgood.
I don't think he deserves to work around kids. Like, that privilege that he had to work with kids should be taken away.
The parent says Borden, a senior, will spend the next 60 school days in alternative school for the incident. The good news, he'll be able to return to Jackson Olin High School in time to graduate with his senior class.
And this is his senior year, so you don't get a chance to, make it right. This is your last year, so hopefully he's learned from this as well.
It's unclear how many more students are facing disciplinary actions for the fight. So far, we know one other student, Solomon Davis, will have to change schools after a 45-day stint at alternative school after he posted one of the videos of the altercation online. Now, Birmingham City Schools says they're not allowed to discuss matters involving students, and in last check, again, that principal remains on administrative leave.
Billie Holiday, I sing your blues. Bet your life against me, and I swear to God you'll lose it. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis. Motherfuck the cops, we still singing for St. Louis.
Growing problem we have seen at the St. Louis City Justice Center. 12 detainees died within the last 2 years, 3 of those from August to September of this year. But tonight, we are learning it is not just a problem here in St. Louis, but statewide. This man on your screen, 38-year-old Othel Moore Jr., died earlier this month at the Jefferson City Correctional Center. Our Missouri Capitol Bureau Chief Joe McClain hears from his family, who is demanding justice.
My brother won't be here to see my kids grow up. My brother won't be here to protect me no more. I can't confide in him. He can't confide in me.
Family members of 38-year-old Othel Moore Jr. are demanding answers about his death while in custody at Jefferson City Correctional Center.
We feel a big void in this family. My whole family is suffering. I mean, I just can't believe this happened to him. He should not have been treated this way. He should still be here.
Attorneys for the Moore family accuse staff at Jefferson City Correctional Center of restraining the 38-year-old in an illegal way, which prevented him from breathing and caused his death. A spokesperson for the Missouri Department of Corrections, Karen Pojman, declined an interview or to give specifics about this case, but said staff at the prison immediately called in emergency crews. She released a statement in part saying, quote, "Until the autopsy report, the investigations, and all of their components have been completed and the cause of death has been determined, neither department administration nor outside parties who were not present can provide an accurate account of what took place." According to the DOC, 116 people have died in custody in Missouri corrections so far this year, as of November 12th. Lori Curry leads Missouri Prison Reform, which advocates for the fair and humane treatment of offenders.
A really big concern right now in the prisons is staffing. Being short-staffed in a prison can cause so many different issues.
She said it forces fewer staff members to carry more of the workload and creates more safety issues and fewer services. Curry said it's important for the public to remember that while offenders did break the law, the goal of the Corrections Department needs to be to correct.
These are human beings. Over 90% of people in our prisons are going to be out someday. They're going to return to your community, your job, your neighborhood. And so we want them to be better people. We want them to be rehabilitated.
In Jefferson City, Joe McClain, First Alert 4.
Earlier this year, NPR published 4 tapes recorded behind the scenes during executions in Virginia. The tapes revealed details about the last seconds of prisoners' lives and indicated that the Virginia Department of Corrections may have tried to cover up one recent botched execution. Now that department is keeping dozens of other tapes hidden, saying the agency wants to protect the privacy of family members. But NPR found 4 relatives of different prisoners who were put to death. They all think the records should be published to hold the prison accountable. Here's NPR's Kiara Eisner.
On the bleachers of a middle school football field in Richmond, Virginia, Ian Taylor and his mother, Amy, look through pictures of Ian's dad, Robert Gleason, and his 3 sons. Oh man, okay, so who are these people?
So this is Joe, which is the oldest kid, then Sean, then Ian. And then those are all Bobby at different ages.
He literally looks like my brother.
Until Ian was 10 years old, Amy had only told him that his father was dead. But it wasn't until Ian Googled his dad's name at school that he discovered Robert Gleason had been the last person executed by Virginia's electric chair in 2013.
I just didn't really feel a lot for the rest of the day. I kind of avoided my friends, and I went home and immediately asked my mom.
That night, Amy told Ian everything she knew about his dad. The murders he committed, the tattoo she got of a drawing he once made, the time he told everyone at the prison they were getting married but forgot to tell her.
They literally called me and were like, you're supposed to be here for the wedding. And I was like, what wedding?
Left him at the altar.
But she didn't tell Ian that the Department of Corrections recorded audio behind the scenes during his dad's execution, because she didn't know that. Nobody from Corrections told her the tapes existed. The tape is still off limits. Virginia is keeping that recording hidden from the public, and 30 others like it that prison employees taped during executions from 1987 to 2017. Only 4 execution tapes like them from Virginia have ever been published. NPR aired those in January. The tapes give listeners an insider perspective that no one from the public usually hears.
Testing, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3.
Have you got the recorder on?
Yes, it's on. Go.
The inmate is now stepping out of his cell. He's carrying the inmate into the chamber.
I repeat, the testing of the equipment is now complete.
It's 11:04. The first surge of electricity has been administered.
The first charge has been applied.
11:05. Second surge of electricity has been administered.
The doctor has given the word that inmate Whitley has expired.
Process complete.
The execution tapes are laced with details like that explain exactly what the state did and did not do when it killed people. And until Virginia abolished the death penalty in 2021, it executed more people than any other U.S. state. NPR sued to obtain the rest of the tapes. In the first hearing of the case, a lawyer for the Virginia Attorney General's office said the state didn't want to make the tape public, in part to protect the privacy of families like Ian's. But Ian and his mom said they want to hear what's on there, and they don't mind if others do too.
Like one of the prison guards would have been treating him, not exactly legally, that would be a huge problem. And if that were to be released, that could help a lot with, shining some light on that.
We spoke with 3 other families whose relatives were recorded as they were executed. They also said no one from the Department of Corrections had told them the tapes existed, and that they'd rather the state publish the tapes about their relatives too, so they could hear if something had gone wrong.
There have been allegations, some of them already proven, that executions have been botched.
That's Robert Dunham. He's a death penalty lawyer who oversaw the compilation of a list of executions nationwide where some sort of mistake was made. In Virginia, 4 executions in the past 50 years are well known to have gone wrong. Dunham says there's reason to believe those weren't the only ones.
And here we have an opportunity to possibly find out what happened. I think there's an overwhelming public interest in that information coming out. And there's no state interest in hiding that information once the execution has been completed.
Travis Spencer also worries about whether Virginia might have made a mistake when the Department of Corrections executed his older brother in 1994. He's a comedian now in the D.C. area.
Virginia's own from Alexandria. Give it up for the hilarious Travis Spencer, everybody. Come on. Hola, ¿cómo estás?
But Spencer doesn't joke about what his family experienced after his brother was convicted. Do you ever use any of this material in your content?
Hell no. Nah, I wouldn't want people to. It doesn't make for good material. However, on the flip side, the family does go through some things, and that's never been talked about.
Spencer remembers how he first found out when he was a teenager that his brother had been arrested for a string of murders in Richmond and Arlington.
And then I come home from school. I was like, wow, Mom's home early. Something must be going on.
He found her upstairs, clutching a newspaper and crying nonstop.
I asked her what's wrong, and she really couldn't articulate anything. So I just grabbed the paper and read it. Just kept rereading it till it made some kind of sense. And I just hugged her. I just hugged her for I don't know how many hours. And just let her cry.
His brother, Timothy Spencer, became the first person in the U.S. who was executed for murder after DNA evidence was used to convict him. Spencer remembers how that affected his family.
We got death threats. It's almost like we're not even human. We wasn't a structured family. I got accused for loving my brother. That's my brother. I gotta love him.
Spencer didn't watch when Virginia finally executed his brother, but he remembers how he felt that day.
You ever go through a day where you just numb, but you know that death is around, like you can feel it. And then the closer we got, the thicker the air got, and then the quieter it got.
When we told him that execution was recorded, he said he wanted to listen to the tape.
I don't know the feeling that I would have after the fact. I just know that that's my brother. I still love him to this day. If there's something out there about my brother, I would like to hear it.
Spencer thinks others should be able to hear the recording too. And for that to happen, it would have to be made public.
But once again, you would have to have the tapes. You're trying to hold them accountable.
After a judge ruled in favor of corrections keeping the tapes hidden in August, NPR appealed. Around the same time, the agency hired a new director, Chad Dotson. In other jobs, Dotson has been vocal about his belief in government accountability. Last June, Sandy Hausman from NPR member station Radio IQ highlighted his efforts as the Virginia Parole Board chair to make that group less secretive.
Already, Dotson insists on a greater degree of transparency. And finally, he's pledged to attack a backlog of pardon requests.
We've tried to open it up. We're having weekly meetings. My recommendations are going to be transformative. I want to change just about everything about how we do things here.
But NPR's request to interview him for this story was turned down, and the tapes are still hidden today, despite the wishes of family members. Kiara Eisner, NPR News.
Yeah. You're still saying there's no profiling, but it is. It is. We're being hunted every day. It's a silent war against African American people as a whole.
The hunt is on. And you're the prey.
Now, we begin CBS News Colorado at 6 with breaking news, and it has to do with the death of Elijah McClain, the 23-year-old who died after paramedics injected him with ketamine. Good evening. I'm Kelly White.
I'm Alan Janae. Karen and Michael are off tonight. Guilty of criminally negligent homicide. That is what a jury says about both paramedics, Jeremy Cooper and Peter Chikuniak. That jury found them not guilty of reckless manslaughter, but did find Peter Chikuniak guilty of second-degree assault for the unlawful administration of drugs. Now, we have Michael Abeyta outside the courtroom. We're going to talk with him when we can, but our Karen Morfitt is here with us right now. She has covered this case extensively. This comes, Karen, only about 90 minutes after the jury came in, told the judge they were deadlocked. He sent them back to try again, and then verdict fairly quickly.
Yeah, and that's something we've seen before in trials, especially when it is complicated. The charges are a little bit complicated. Sometimes the judge will send them back 2, maybe 3 times. Ultimately, they did decide unanimously on a verdict on the charge of criminally negligent homicide, and for one of the paramedics, the one who assumingly injected McClain with the ketamine, a guilty of second-degree assault as well. This marks the end of the third and final trial related to Elijah McClain's death. Prosecutors have argued all along that the two paramedics, did not follow protocol and didn't properly assess McClain, and that those missteps led to an overdose of the powerful sedative ketamine, which ultimately led to his death. Now, the defense has said that the 3 Aurora police officers who had control of the scene that night had the knowledge that they gave these paramedics the knowledge, and they indicated that McClain was suffering from what is known as excited delirium. Based on that information, the paramedics said ketamine was the response they were to take. The jury could have decided between criminally negligent homicide or reckless manslaughter, and the difference between those two is that manslaughter is defined as the unintentional killing of another person by law. Now, the other says that their acts were negligent, and that they were so negligent that they amounted to a crime. Again, Jeremy Cooper has been found guilty of criminally negligent homicide and not guilty of second-degree assault, and Peter Chikuniak was found guilty of criminally negligent homicide as well, and guilty of second-degree assault, unlawful administration of drugs. So, guys, now they will move in to the sentencing phase of this trial. The 2 officers, 2 of them were acquitted completely. 1 was found guilty. He is going to be sentenced in January. A date has not yet been set for the paramedics.
Thank you for following this. We know you just ran in from the newsroom with this information.
Absolutely,
so
you could hear that
so much. Yeah,
it's an important case, one we've been following. That dates back to 2019, and one so important to the family, of McClain, his mother, who has been through 3 trials now, day in and day out. And so hopefully we'll be able to hear from her. Michael Abeyta is there at the courtroom, and hopefully we'll be hearing from him soon as well.
It is interesting with all you've covered on this that we've had such a mixed verdict over this. We've had not guilty and then some guilty verdicts. This is a pretty stiff verdict here.
Yeah, and one that will really set a precedent, right? Because it's very unusual for paramedics who are doing their job to be charged criminally like this. And so I think we're going to see this kind of ripple across the country and definitely set a tone for this type of response. And Ketamine, obviously, we've seen a lot of changes in its use since this case. Not all of that could be brought into trial because this was all based on the 2019, what was in protocol, what was in law. Ketamine had much different rules then, and so things have changed a lot since then, and we've already seen a lot of change. But this could mean more.
Yeah. And the administration of it, and the fact that he was essentially overdosed.
Absolutely,
at his weight.
The man knot, race, class, genre, and the dilemmas of black manhood.
As the 3 officers charged in the death of Manuel Ellis all have been acquitted by a jury. That verdict coming down about an hour or so ago. Let's go now live to our reporter Madison Wade, who is also in Tacoma for us. And Madison is where a rally is being held right now, I believe, if we have her live. Madison, if you can hear us, what is happening where you are?
Yeah. Well, right now, Jessica, as you can see, there is a rally happening here at 11th and Martin Luther King Jr. Boulevard here in Tacoma, only a few short blocks away from the courthouse where that verdict was read just over an hour ago, and all 3 officers were found not guilty. This rally right now is around 100 people gathering at this intersection. You can see they have put up barriers to make sure no cars are going through. Also, we know that Sound Transit has been trying to get through as well and was unable to and had to turn around. So this intersection right now is being blocked off as people here, supporters of the Manuel Ellis family, are here speaking. There is some profanity, so we do need to stay just a little bit away from what they are saying at the moment. But we will talk to some of these people here and see what their reaction is to the verdict. Of course, a lot of frustration, a lot of anger over the verdict that was announced just over an hour ago at the courthouse. And again, we are just on the same block of the Manuel Ellis mural that stands here in honor of Manny Ellis. And many people here are gathering tonight, and the rally is supposed to happen at 6 o'clock. They're taking a pause right now, not announcing anything, but people are standing around taking photos and videos, announcing over a loudspeaker as well, and holding up signs for justice, saying no justice, no peace. We have seen rallies similar to this after other cases in our area, and this one, of course, has so much attention given that it's been years in the making of this trial, and today we finally know the verdict that all 3 officers were found not guilty. This rally is expected to start officially at 6 o'clock, but this is only a short drive away from the courthouse, so people came up here right after that verdict was read and gathered right here, and they're occupying this space right now. There is no travel going through these intersections, no Sound Transit, no buses going through this intersection right now. We're expecting to talk to more people here as well, and attorneys who are heading this direction, so once we learn more, we'll be sure to let you know. Back to you.
Madison, you mentioned some people there feeling upset and angry, but it does seem to be at this point a pretty peaceful gathering. And you mentioned also that the rally is set to begin at 6 o'clock tonight. But give us a sense of what they're expecting there at that location. It seems like plenty of people already there.
Right now, it seems as if I am the only one speaking. It's incredibly quiet, very peaceful. People are just here gathering in the middle. There's one person with a loudspeaker speaking, but as you were saying, it is more peaceful than it is anything else. You see people holding justice for Manny signs as well. I'll let you listen for just a second into what they're saying.
We want freedom, freedom. All these racist signs,
Again, this is continuing right now here at 11th and MLK in Tacoma, only a short drive away from the courthouse. The mural for Manuel Ellis is on this exact same block. This rally is set to start officially at 6 p.m., but many people who were at the courthouse made their way up here after they heard the verdict, and they wanted to be all together. So we are going to talk to some other people here, and we'll bring you more of their reaction and their emotion today after a verdict that they did not want in their favor. Back to you.
Okay, Madison, we'll let you talk to them. We'll be checking in with you throughout the hour. Thank you.
Let me say something that gets to the very crux of the matter, and this may be offensive for some to hear who are not on the side that we're on. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
Say that again.
Let me say it one more time for those of you who didn't hear me. White people, we have been the problem for 400 years.
White man charged with federal hate crime and killing of John Mike Roan in Kansas City. The 36-year-old white man accused of killing John Roan Jr., a 41-year-old black man stabbed outside of a Kansas City convenience store on July 4, has been charged with a hate crime, according to federal prosecutors. Sean W. Tonkin, of Florida, was indicted Wednesday by a Kansas City grand jury, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Western District of Missouri. He has been held in the Jackson County Jail since mid-July on state charges, including a misdemeanor for disturbing the peace. Federal prosecutors allege the killing was racially motivated as Tonkin, who was staying in an area motel, directed racial slurs toward Rohn before stabbing him twice. The case continues to be investigated by the FBI, prosecutors said. Friends and family of Rohn's who spoke to the Star in the wake of his killing have said Tonkin had displayed an apparent hatred of black people and had been looking for a fight. Authorities have previously said several witnesses overheard Tonkin using the N-word and addressing Rohn by that slur. The killing happened on Independence Day. Around 2:30 p.m. police officers were dispatched to the reported stabbing at the Liquor Land gas station and convenience store at 14,306 US 40 in eastern Kansas City. Inside the store, officers located Rohn on the ground as he was bleeding from stab wounds. He was pronounced dead at the scene. Witnesses told police a stranger, later identified by authorities as Tonkin, had approached them and repeatedly used the N-word in conversation despite being told to stop, according to court records. Tonkin then used the slur to address Rohn, one of the witnesses said, and later threw the first punch when the two fought outside the store. Surveillance video of the encounter showed Rohn, with a club in hand, follow Tonkin to the side of the business out of camera view, according to an affidavit filed by a Kansas City detective earlier this year. Shortly after that, Rohn stumbled back into the store, uttered "he stabbed me," and collapsed to the floor. Tonkin was arrested that day in nearby Independence. He allegedly tried to hide in a tree line when police were approaching, and a knife was collected by officers when he was taken into custody, the affidavit says. Family and friends of Rohn have called for more serious criminal charges to be brought against Tonkin in the wake of the killing. Misty Beck, Rohn's girlfriend, told the Star previously that she and Rohn, a father of two sons who went by Mike, were regular customers of Liquor Land and often played the video casino games there. On the day he died, Beck said, she overheard someone yell the N-word and saw Rohn standing near Tonkin. She tried to get him to leave the situation, she said, but he calmly told her he was handling it. Seconds later, she recalled, a woman ran into the store yelling for someone to call 911. The Star also spoke with Rohn's sister, who requested anonymity out of fear of retaliation. She has questioned why more serious charges were not filed immediately after her brother was killed, saying she believed the killing was clearly motivated by racism. She said one of the witnesses to the stabbing told her that Tonkin, before killing her brother, had asked whether she would like to see a white boy up N. In July, Tonkin was charged in Jackson County with drug possession and disturbing the peace, a misdemeanor, as prosecutors said there were elements of Missouri's self-defense law that would determine whether other state charges could be pursued. The Jackson County Prosecutor's Office said at the time that Tonkin had used highly disturbing racial slurs and we categorically condemned that language, adding the office had filed available charges under Missouri law that address those racist comments. This story was originally published December 20, 2023, 8:50 p.m.
This question, why is this stuff happening? The New York Times editorial today. The Trump effect. See, this is what I'm doing with my money, buying newspapers like Dick Gregory. The Trump effect and how it spreads. It says we are on the brink, under Trump, on the brink of fascism. New York Times, all the news that's fit to print, editorial 12/10/2015. I say fascism is end-stage white supremacy. See, just like in Nazi Germany. Fascism, system of racism, white supremacy, determined to survive.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. First at 10 o'clock, an arrest tonight after a stabbing on LSU's campus Wednesday night. 24-year-old Gilbert Fisher is accused of stabbing a man near Highland Road. After that, police say the attacker drove to a convenience store on College Drive where he threatened employees with a knife and even tried to hit them with his car. News 2's Alexis Maroney spoke to the victim's son.
Sylvia Fisher is charged with attempted first-degree murder and hate crimes. I spoke with the stabbing victim's son, who says he hopes that this sends a message. For LSU freshman Jalen Lands, Wednesday afternoon should have been relaxing. With his first semester over, it was time to rest. As Lands leaves the university gym and walks towards Highland, he's stopped in his tracks.
And then this guy, he walks past me, and he says something, so I take my headphones out, broad daylight. I'm like, okay, what is he saying? First thing he says is the N-word, and then he pushes me.
Lands says he expected a fight. That's when the man pushed him, pulled out a knife, and chased him. Lands, who lives in Baton Rouge, called his dad for help. When his dad shows up, Jalen tells him about the knife.
My dad, he, not really listening and stuff, gets too close, and he tries to back up, and he falls, and the guy gets on top of him.
Police say 24-year-old Gilbert Fisher stabbed Jalen's father in the leg.
I had to make a little quick tourniquet because it was gushing pretty bad.
The attacker got away. He drove to a gas station on Lee Drive, where police say he threw merchandise, called employees racial slurs, and threatened them with the knife.
They were able to fend him off with mop brooms and mop handles.
Elgene McNeely with BRPD says the man tried to hit the witnesses with his car. He drove away into oncoming traffic. An officer stationed at the Walgreens across the street followed that car with his lights and sirens on, but the driver got away. He later crashed his car on the north part of LSU's campus. Jalen Lands says after this experience, he hopes something can be done, especially because Lands believes he was targeted.
I'm not one to be like compensation, but it's like, y'all just letting these people be on campus. Buddy was coming fresh off of campus, you know what I'm saying? And he found the first person that he saw.
According to arrest records, Gilbert Fisher was charged with attempted first-degree murder and hate crimes. Those charges are in addition to charges from the gas station incident.
I don't know if it's just more security. It's just like, kind of needs to be talked about a little more. Like,
we also reached out to LSU police. So far, we have not heard back. Good news, Jalen says his dad is doing well and is expected to recover.
And may all your Christmases be white.
5, 4, 3. She's pure alligator. Pure white.
2. Albinos that do make it to reproductive age can't find a mate because they look funny.
1. Albino affairs.
Okay, so remember back in October when we told you about a man finding an albino raccoon near Lake Merritt? The chances of that actually very low. Wildlife experts say it's more likely to get hit by lightning. Well, last night, a viewer in the city saw an albino raccoon on her walk home near Lake Merritt. I see it right there. I was crossing the street. It's not clear if that is actually the same raccoon or not, but maybe if you're in Oakland, you might get to see it yourself.
Not the White Christmas, no. They have albino coons in California. Context of White Supremacy. Gus T. Renegade, undignified, in for another broadcast, hopefully to share constructive information on the system of white supremacy. Today's date, Saturday, December 23, 2023. So I have been told. Our weekly compensatory call-in. Dial in if you have thoughts, observations, questions to share. The number 605-313-5164. Decode 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Number again, 605-313-5164. the code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Star 61 if you would like to participate. We will be here on Tuesday, so that is the day after Christmas, the 26th. Normal time, same time, all of our programs, same time, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We'll be here Tuesday. I'll be like what they call it, double dip with regards to white supremacy, racism, and labor. We'll discuss different ways black people, black managers specifically, difficulties that they face with white supremacy, racism, area of labor. That will be on Tuesday, day after so-called Christmas. Be able to check in, see how folks are able to get through the day, hopefully constructively, maybe eat some good food, talk about some constructive things, how to eat better foods, that type of thing, maybe even counter racism. Anywho, but that'll be Tuesday, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Certainly we'll be here for the book club. New book we just started. First installment this past Thursday, Harry Dunn's Standing My Ground, a black male enforcement official with the Capitol Police. He was there for the January 6th insurrection, his biography, and gives a very detailed account of what happened on that day. I think we'll be starting all of that, I believe. This week we're starting chapter 3. It's titled The Insurrection, so I think we'll get, right to business. This week's second installment, if you missed out this past Thursday, we only read 2 chapters, so you are not very far behind. Incidentally, Mr. Dunn, in the little tidbit that we read in the first installment, he did corroborate what I and many others have said. Certainly not new, but his book just published in October of 2023, so pretty recent. But he said, man, we work at the Capitol building, the seat of power, certainly for this area of the world, one of the most powerful nests of white power in the known universe here in Washington, D.C. All of these powerful white people and celebrities and such coming through here all the time. We're doing protection and security for these folks, and the young people, I think he was talking about the young black people that come into this job, they don't check the news or pay attention to what's happening on the planet at all. Yep, that used to be me. And in fact, Mr. Dunn said that used to be he as well. He said I was just about, sports and new music, entertainment. So yeah, that's how lots of non-white people, victims of white supremacy, that is how we are brain trashed and conditioned. Just focus on entertainment and not even studying, what have you, just, being entertained, distracted, really. Anywho, pay attention locally. Dr. Welsing, Dick Gregory, Neely Fuller, Kamal Kambon, long list of black people who did, as much as they could. Check the news, be aware of what is happening in the known universe, locally, nationally, globally. Now, some of the tidbits, in fact, before I even get to some of the specific news tidbits that we heard, 2 things. 1, try to research. Say again, Dr. Welsing, she used to say all the time. In fact, 3 things, because I said Dr. Welsing, I was going back. I was trying my best to see if we could, for the first time, have a white person as a guest on the program for December 25, but I failed. I even went back and I was hearing the exchange where I tried to see if I could get Tim Wise on the program for Christmas, admitted racist white supremacist Tim Wise, and he declined with an attitude, and they made me go back and look, and we've done so many programs with different guests where Dr. Welsing has hung out with us on Christmas Day, Thanksgiving as well. Pamela Evans Harris hung out with us on Christmas Day, and Renethia Tate, Dr. Niana Rasayan. We've had so many folks. Dr. Cambon, who've hung out with us on, major white holiday. Those are two of the big ones where they kind of shut down everything, so-called Thanksgiving and then Christmas as well. What is more important? Even if you got to do the whole, so-called gift exchange and all that old nonsense and do the gingerbread men and get some spiked eggnog, even if you got to do all of that, that's not an all-day activity. A whole lot of people, they take naps and, end up eating 2, 3, 4, 5 batches of chitlin and ham and all that other nonsense, putting on weight that we don't need. It's like, that's not an all-day activity. Even if you go visit the relatives, that's not an all-day activity. There's a lot of TV watching. They don't have all that football and such on TV because they think people are going to be, just, we got so many things to do. Who's got time to sit down and watch TV? Please. Anyway, I tried to, and even the white guests I was looking to have, they sought me out to chat it up. I said, well, let's chat December 25. Nah. How serious are we about replacing white supremacy with justice? Anyway, that's one. Two, I used to, way back when C.O.W.S first started, it's not even like I said it a bunch of times. I said it one time. It's in the archives right now, I believe. I have to go back to double check to make sure I'm not mistaken, but I think it is in the archives. Racists are most to blame. They've sabotaged and disrupted our archives. I've had to go back and upload, programs 2-3 times, sometimes even more than that. But I think I've put this program back in there. But anyway, the first time admitted racist white supremacist Pharaoh Winfrey was a guest on the C.O.W.S way back in 2007, very close to so-called Christmas in 2007. She was a guest on the broadcast, and right at the end, I said, replace white supremacy with love. I will even concede I had not read Mr. Fuller's code book at the time. I did not read it literally, and I know it was about 30 days later because at about this time period, the Christmas interim hit. We were off the air because we were on the University of Washington's radio station at that time, 2007. They had the Christmas break, and they kicked us off the air at the Christmas break. So we were not broadcasting in December, and so I finally had so-called free time to read Mr. Fuller's code book. But at the time that I said this, Miss Winfrey on the program November 2007, which again I think is in the archives, I said at the end, replace white supremacy with love. I was immediately chided. What is wrong with you? That is not what it is. It's RWSWJ. Get it together, man. Out there just saying any old thing. Get it together. I said, dang. Now, within 30 days, I read the code book. Neely Fuller Jr. says, rights, love, justice, equivalent, one and the same. And then, subsequent to me reading that, I've heard him say that over and over and over. Even got it in the archives of the C.O.W.S a few times, not once or twice. Like, if someone called me on it, like, oh yeah, I could put my hand on that immediately, and in writing, many ways. He could have changed his mind, cool in the gang, but he did say it, wrote it. As soon as I saw that, I said, wow. My brain computer does work. Once you see that equivalent, meaning A equals B, they can be substituted. I thought about that. I said, dang, I have to get past that and even, in fact, use that incident. I try not to discourage people, even when people contact, especially when people are doing their own thing. If it doesn't have anything to do with me, they're out saying whatever they do, whatever. I do not step in to criticize or what have you just because I don't agree. I have a different perspective about their view, how they articulate their view, even how they behave. I resist the urge to criticize, especially unsolicited criticism. But I thought about that and I said, dang, we are so enamored, deliberate word choice, with that word love. Love, love, love. They do a whole lot of that nonsense talk right now. Hey, you had better get me something good for white Jesus' birthday if you love me. See, we do all that talking about love. Maybe if we were saying replace white supremacy with love and then explaining it. Even don't credit to Gus, credit it to Fuller, because I'm just using it. That's how he wrote it in the code book. Love and justice are one and the same. And I'm saying, reason for saying, replace white supremacy with love, that might get some of us to stop and think. We don't have love. You can't have racism. Excuse me. Well, yeah, you can't have love if you got a system of racism, white supremacy. To really make people think about that, maybe even get some people to stop being so reckless, careless, throwing that term love. I love black people, and I love my black brothers. I love my black sisters. I love my African. Replace white supremacy with love. We don't have love. That's what we're trying to get in place. We got to get rid of the system of white supremacy to get to the love part, black brother. Maybe we can get to that brother and sister part then, too. But we're not there right now. We don't have all that love. We got racism right now. But I did think about that just because I keep saying the person who posts under crazy lover. See there? See that crazy lover. Cal's listener, that's victims of racism. We do not qualify for mental health. And that word love. Really run crazy. Talking about some love. Love me some black people. Love us. Why don't you love us and all that? Replace white supremacy with love. Not going to have any of that long as we got the system of white supremacy. Now, maybe that's not best. You all can, like I've already been rebuked about this before. You all can let me know if it makes sense or not. Again, my reasoning is make sure you explain it that way. Don't just toss it out there, but make sure it's said. Can't have love in a system of racism. Explain why that is. If I'm talking crazy, but I mean, dang, that is pretty straight Neely Fuller Jr., right? Like, you can line them up page numbers, Neely Fuller Jr., bang, to get people to pause on all of that. Unless you think that's beneficial, us just running around and love, sounding like my man Dylan Klebold. Anywho, with regards to some of the notes that we heard, or reports that we heard, Dr. Claudine Gay, first black female president at Harvard, they couldn't get her fired. They had her at the hearing and darn near saying that she and old Tyree Irving got these old Negro anti-Semites running around here talking all this and saying all that. Couldn't get her fired then, although I'm sure if white people really wanted her fired, they could have got rid of her. Now, days later, I mean, even I talk about that, the timing. So this was right now. Nobody caught any of these so-called errors or she played right. Nobody caught any of that until this moment. She is a no-count anti-Semite and she's a cheater. Okay, and I would be remiss if I did not include at least the only person that they have interviewed and cited to my knowledge and saying that she, Dr. Gay, black female president at Harvard, that she copied, plagiarized material from, is also a black female. They interviewed her in the report. We heard Dr. Carol M. Swain, who was saying that she felt this was elitism and that Dr. Gay should have been fired already, and that if, this was another institution or what have you, she thinks that it would have been different standards and she would have been fired already. So they can even say, hey, it's not racism, because we got a black female where she copied her work, and this black female is upset. And incidentally, I would be upset too if I had written something, if this is true, if these charges are true, if, the work was copied and proper credit is not cited and all the rest of it, I would be upset too. All of that said, no one does it better. Masters. Timing. Maybe these charges are founded, maybe they're not, but timing. Maybe they've had this information, these investigations has been going on into her academic integrity for some time. Maybe that's true. But dang, if that was triggered by everything that happened last week, and or they had this information and decided to wait to kick off or release to the local school press, the Crimson Tide, I think it is, for Harvard. Oh yeah, we got to look into possible wow, that whew. Masters use of time. We'll have to see how all of this unfolds for Dr. Gay in 2024. Let's see. And then even within that, they said they're giving them 1 week. They're adding this to the investigation about the so-called anti-Semitism on campus and all of that. They're giving them 1 week to give up the information for the investigation, December 29th. I was like, dang, I thought they got, let's see, the 24th and the 25th, those are holidays. So, dang, you're on kind of a truncated time schedule. A lot of people, major universities and such, they're out of there. I know University of Washington has been a ghost town for about a week. People out of there. I'll see you next year. Got things to do. Marshmallows, albino coons. Let's see. All of the talk about the rhetoric. You heard the anger in Colorado when talking about dill, vodka. In fact, even with Timothy McVeigh, matter of fact, Timothy McVeigh was selling the Turner Diaries. Shout out to the chatbot. The flipping chatbot had to remind me, same conversation about freaking Trump and the Constitution, and is he eligible? 2 shout outs for the chatbot, but the chatbot had to remind me, William Pierce, the Turner Diaries. Brother Gus, Colorado is pretty prominent. Oh, he said, that was it. The chatbot said, Brother Gus, I bet you Dill and Reb probably read the Turner Diaries. And I said, dang, why do you say that? He said, well, Colorado is pretty prominently featured in the Turner Diaries, even in William Pierce's writings in general. And I said, do what? He said, yeah, go back and look at the section. And I was like, whoa, it is. What in the world? Rhetoric. And that's even Timothy McVeigh. A lot of those books that were about bombings, explosive. There's a lot of that material is published out in the Boulder area. The books like Anarchist Cookbook, Poor Man's Guide to James Bond, those type of books. So all this rhetoric that they're talking in Colorado and Civil War, and we're going to attack people and doxing and all of that. I mean, not even 2017 Charlottesville, like all the way back to Obama and other. Long history of white people talking in the exact same manner, rhetoric, all the way back to Pitchfork Ben Tillman, really. White, violent rhetoric in the system of racism, white supremacy, and specifically with Colorado. It's make my day. That's the state motto. Make my day. State law, not the, well, maybe it's both of them, but they got the state law for gun ownership. Make my day law. Let's see. If this had been, when they were talking about all of that, if this had been individuals classified as black, if Isaiah Shoals had been out in Colorado, I'm mad. Elijah McClain, I'm mad about how we're treated. they bully us in school and all the rest of it, and they get online and they're putting out school officials and the superintendent's name and address and email and mobile number and all the rest of it. You think we can't stop this, we can't do anything about this. Freedom of speech. Come on, man. Come on. And they said, wait a minute, they said the folks that are calling for violence, because we've heard that a number of times already, and we're going into election season, white people calling for violence, threatening officials, secession, again, they were talking about that way back in 2012, the Obama years. They said it would help if some of the Donald Trump lead powerful white officials, men and women, if they would come out and say, hey, I totally disavow violence. We want to be law-abiding, non-violent. We do not want a repeat. In fact, we cannot have a repeat of January 6th. If they would just come out and say something like that, they said it would bring the temperature down. Metaphor. What does that mean? I thought they've been emboldened. You make them behave and be law-abiding, non-violent. Great. Lessen the racism, perhaps. We don't want to go that far, but bring the temperature down. What, are you cooking chitlins? What? And then they said, and this is Odette Yusuf, who is racially ambiguous. I'm not sure, you'd have to look at her photograph and, decide for yourself. But for NPR, she covers a lot of the reports where they talk about so-called white nationalism, extremism. They don't say racism generally. White supremacy sometimes, but mostly it'll be extremism. White nationalism. That'll be the type of language. And then they said that this sort of language, it can have a chilling effect. Wait a minute now, you just said it would bring the temperature down if they would tell these folks to behave, and then to come back and say that all this language and doxing and putting out people's information and threats and violence, it has a chilling effect. What are you talking about? Use direct rhetoric, metaphors. They are the kings of that. Be specific about what you're talking about, especially if we're talking about violence here and a repeat of, call things by their proper name. We are not talking about the climate and all of that. That's important too. We're talking about white violence here. Be exact with the words, Odette Yusuf, and then you can even let us know too what your racial classification is. Let's see. Next, they talked about Rite Aid. That alone, I did not hear about this at all. And if I'm lame and goofy and just wasn't paying attention, you can let me know. I don't really shop at Rite Aid. They do have Rite Aids here in the Seattle area, but man, I did not hear about that at all. That they, had been accused of some sort of illegal or incorrect usage of the facial recognition technology. I didn't even know that was in usage in the stores or in other retail outlets. I really didn't. I knew they had that at like the airport and TSA and things like that, but I had no idea how widespread that had become, much less like they have been using this incorrectly on such a wide scale basis that they've now been banned for 5 years from using the facial technology and allegedly from storing any of the data that they collected while they were using it. That right there is reason enough. Check your local, national, global news. Was this happening in my area? Certainly, hopefully that would have been in local news. Like, dang, they said in the first city. I was thinking white supremacy racism way before they got later on and actually mentioned it explicit in the segment as soon as they started listing cities where they said this is a big problem. And they said for Rite Aid, and they said Baltimore. Said, oh, it's a living hell. Didn't Trump tell it's a living hell? We love you, Mar Jackson. Good luck Christmas Day. But man, that's almost like South Side of Chicago. And you say Baltimore, like, uh-oh, The Wire, Negroes. They said Philadelphia too. Now I know it's quite a few white people in Baltimore. I know it's a lot of white people in Philadelphia too. Certainly San Francisco, you have lots of white people. But man, with just that one alone, the Baltimore, like, uh-oh, the land of Freddie Gray. I know this is going to be some racism. Plus, they already have quite a bit of scholarship pointing out, hey, the facial recognition and the AI has difficulty with melanated faces. This is not disputed. Lots of reports talking about this. And in fact, we just heard yesterday, they were talking about with some of the other errors with the AI programming and such, they said that the AI generated faces are thought of as more trustworthy. And I said, what does that mean? What does that mean? Are these pale faces that are more trustworthy? Fairer, if you will? At any rate, and then they got explicit. So first they gave us the cities where this had been a problem, and I'm sure it was others, and they gave the details like, dang, an 11-year-old got shook down, and the employees were being, oh my goodness, and they even said this was supposed to be clandestine. Shh. Keep quiet. Don't even tell them that we got all this technology running, and, we're going to scan their face when it, shh. I thought they supposed to let you know, but don't they normally have signs and such up, CCTV in use, for your safety and all? They let you know that they got the cameras, and they're shh. And then we're going to go and use it. They said it was just supposed to be if we say, oh, this is a repeat shoplifter, we go up and, ma'am, sir, do you need any assistance? You okay? Okay, and that would be enough to kind of, oh, yikes, they, kind of know the color. Let me get out of here. They said they were going and shaking down the 11-year-olds, calling the police on people, embarrassing them in front. I said, all of that, I know what that is. Freddie Gray, Mike Brown, what are you doing with those cigarillos, you old stealing coon? Get out of here. Mess up our Christmas. I already know what all that is. And like I said, the facial technology, they've already said it doesn't work well for dark faces. So was this a dark 11-year-old? And it saw him, was like, oh, is that Osama bin? Osama, get out of it. What are you doing? Get out of the candy aisle. Osama bin Laden in here stealing Snickers bars. No, I think that's an 11-year-old boy, but okay. And they said Rite Aid complied with this, and they said even some of the other companies, they didn't give specific names because they didn't want the brush of racism. What? Are we coloring here? What is going on? My man Bob Ross, what is the brush of racism? Like what? 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 Why would it be the brush of race? Was Rite Aid thought of as racist in all of this? Like, I would feel really goofy if I missed all of that. The brush of racism was it? Whoa. Does that happen with anything else? People have been talking about the police. They've been racist with the chokehold. The other police departments said, whoa. We are done with all this chokehold business. We don't want the brush of racism. I have to pay attention to even that, because the brush of racism. Let's see. The chocolate for Christmas. I even wrote that out. Chocolate. They talk about white Christmas, and they want chocolate. They don't even want white chocolate. They want rich, velvety. Velvet is not white. Often, most of the time, velvet is dark, warm chocolate. Normally they want dark chocolate. Russell Stover's chocolate. This is make that for every season. Dr. Welsing talked about that. How is that every season? Chocolate. Every time for chocolate. Get ready to come right around for Valentine's Day and do all that. Get chocolate. And then do it all again for chocolate. Chocolate. Had Fuller in there too. And even, in fact, they double whammy the chocolate this year, because this year played Jeffrey Dahmer's song. We just heard that one. Him working at the chocolate factory. They just released, I don't even know what version they're on with this one, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory again. That's the Christmas movie again. Let's go and watch going to the chocolate factory. Get the golden ticket in the chocolate bar. Incidentally, the song that we played where they were doing the riff off of the Willy Wonka section where the Oompa Loompas come out, even slow down and pause right there. I haven't seen the latest iteration, but I'm pretty sure the Oompa Loompas will make a presence. You remember, if you saw any version, the Oompa Loompas are not white. They're kind of orange color, and they got green hair, and they come out and do their like electric slide shuffle kind of a thing, dance number, and sing the song and all of that. And they're really short, almost like pygmies. Almost like pygmies. Almost like pygmies. Where do you get the cocoa beans from? Who do you need to go and do the work to get the cocoa beans so that we can have the Godiva and Russell chocolates and Dahmer can be the Oh, yes. Sometimes it is literally the pygmies. We need them to go get the cocoa beans and slavery. And in fact, they got current documentaries right now. That's why they included in the book. Oh, yes, we travel the world and find the niggers and pygmies. And I mean, we do fair trade, whatever that means. No Negro slaves. We didn't go round up pygmies and make them get these cocoa beans. No. Please. They got whole documentaries like right now about all of that. White supremacy, racism in every munch of your chocolate bar. And lead. Man, that is one goofy report that I played so long ago where they talked about how much lead is in chocolate, and they had one of those again today, especially if you get lower quality chocolate. All of it's got it, but especially lower quality. I just saw that today. Lead is cumulative. Poisoning. Freddie Gray one more time. And they said, I said, dang, maybe you should not eat chocolate. And they said, hey, whoa, we can't go crazy. Can't, just moderation. Well, if it's cumulative, I say, yeah, it's cumulative. And sometimes, it can be a really high concentration of lead in that chocolate. Just had another report about that today. That would be a great reason if you have children to maybe start them off in life. They don't do chocolate at all because it's cumulative and addictive. Let's see. They said the white people before they made the Russell Stover chocolate factory in Kansas, they were making ice cream bars, made lots of money. I'm no surprise. They called them Eskimo pies. I even thought about that. Eskimos are non-white. We got some of the folks connected to Alaska. Eskimos are non-white. Right? They put the chocolate Eskimo bar. And they go crazy. Anyway, let's see. When they talked about doing the video visits for people that are in greater confinement, and this is the jail portion before you've actually been convicted of a crime and sentenced to whatever, and they were talking about the jail portion and doing video visits for that in lieu of in-person visits. And I thought that was so horrific. I mean, you haven't even been convicted at this point. You might be an innocent person detained. I can't even have contact with my family or whatever. Or it's got to be real draconian. It can't even be direct. It's got to be via Zoom if they can afford it and all. Like, man, that is inhumane. In so many ways, I could see that, being a substitute to further. Racists love to do things to sever those connections in humanity between people, particularly that way they can really dehumanize those people that they have in greater confinement. Nobody's connected, and your family's not checking on you. You don't have any visit. Hey, nobody for you to even tell about all this, is there? Privileged Leroy. Let's see. They said, and they even said they were defending. They said the video was better because it's so traumatic for the children to come to prison. Maybe we could make it less traumatic for them to come visit. That Dostoevsky quote about judging a society by the way they treat their prisoners, maybe it would be a good time to reference that. Let's see. The young fella in Birmingham, we were just talking about Alabama this week. We had old Paul Kicks on the program. They had a black mommy. She didn't want to be identified, totally get it. Black mommy said they had a white teacher. Yelled at her little fella. All this started over vaping. That was one where I paused. Now, I don't know if this was cannabis vaping or nicotine vaping. Sobriety would be best. But they said that all this started over vaping, which is certainly not cool, especially for the developing brain. It is absolutely horrible. Anyway, so as opposed to this being a profession, and even got to pause right there. Remember Columbine? They weren't vaping quite yet, but don't you remember at Columbine they had the whole smokers corner? You go outside, nicotine up at the smokers corner, totally illegal, not supposed to be smoking cigarettes under 18, but they got the whole smokers corner. Remember Randy Brown's child said, I'm going outside to get a cigarette before they started blowing up the school. It's like, maybe I would have been shot if I didn't have my own nicotine habit. They didn't talk about any of them. You little white cracker, what are you doing with that? You put that cigarette down. Have you lost your cracker mind? I don't remember nothing about that. It was total permissiveness, and we had people calling us. That's the way it was at my white school. They were smoking joints and reefer and everything else. Leroy gets a vape. Negro, have you lost your... I almost. Isn't that lean on me? The great Morgan Freeman. You smoke crack, don't you? You smoke crack, don't you? He jabbing him in the head. You smoke crack, don't you? You smoke crack, don't you? Jump off the roof. Jump off the roof, nigger. Jump off the roof. You play around with sex. The joke is on the offspring. Because, I mean, I wouldn't want my child vaping or smoking cigarettes or any of that stuff. But, I mean, dang, isn't there a way you talk to them in a civil manner, in a professional manner? Things haven't changed that much in Alabama, I reckon. Old Paul Kicks. Let's see. There are about two different... Manuel Ellis happened right down the road from me. Tacoma, I literally could have went to that protest easily today and been back in time to broadcast and, had live photographs and everything else. They've been talking about that case for quite some time. He, a privileged black male, Manuel Ellis, killed by enforcement officers, none of them indicted for what took place. Those are the type of events, because we're here in Washington State where they have lots of individuals classified as white who will be out at those marches and such. I'm surprised. They probably did, in fact, have protests right in here in Seattle proper. Tacoma is about 30 minutes, give or take, traffic, 30-minute drive from Seattle to Tacoma. Very easy to get there. You're supposed to have the super train that'll get you there, also in about 30 minutes. That's supposed to be done, I don't know, a few years or so. But, yeah, that's right here. Seattle's on. I'm sure they had protests here in Seattle as well about all of that. No surprise there. I had the report. Mike Rohn, privileged black male in Kansas. We talked about that case this summer with Toriano Porter. We even talked about it before he was a guest on the program. He was killed, they said, at a convenience store, and then they gave the actual information, more details later in the report. Mike Rohn Jr. was killed this summer out front of Liquor Land. Sobriety would be best. They said specifically Mike Rohn Jr. was stabbed to death by Sean W. Tonkin of Florida. How did you get all the way to Missouri? This was your July 4th, celebration? I'm going to leave Florida to go to Missouri to stab a black male? That was your July 4th plan? What does it mean to be white? Now, I talked about that incident this past summer when they were going over the details of how this happened. I'm not with the redacting and all of that, because they included that information this summer when this happened. Took all this time for them to make an arrest or file charges for more than just trespassing and all the rest of it. Mr. Tonkin, suspected race soldier, he said before he stabbed Mr. Roan to death, he said, want to see a white boy fuck up a nigger. That's what he said, told a witness. I said this past summer, we talked about this repeatedly. You hear someone talking, they said, witness, come on, Mr. Roan, let's get on out. He said, no. I'm going to deal, you don't talk to me that way. Victims guaranteed qualified. That's what I said this summer. Certainly. God bless the dead. Mr. Roan. System of white supremacy racism. You have no idea. You should be thinking. If someone comes and they're saying all that, you have no, do they have a pipe bomb? Do they have a machete? Do they have a firearm? Do they have a whole satchel of firearms? You have no idea. Are you ready to die right now? That's the way that I pitched it. Are you ready to die right now? I'm at Liquorland. We're playing the casino game. We're having a good time, making plans for later. Pick up a teaspoon or something. It's a great day. July 4th. Might go see the fireworks when we get ready to leave Liquorland. Want to see me fuck up a nigger? What? What you say? And I'm going to go outside with my club. Now what happens if I get outside and he's got a gun? Now, whoa. That happens to us frequently. The advice was, let's get out of here. That's always, you want to take that one. Let's get out of here. Because you have does he have a whole gang waiting outside just around the corner? We all collectively are going, F that nigger up. You don't know. I thought it was just going to be me and you, mano y mano, as they say. I got my club. Now 6 of y'all. Even if you got a firearm, it's 6 of y'all. Like, whoa. How fast are you with your aim? Exit, flee, always. And in fact, even the rewind before all of that, I said for a long time, and especially this time of year, the holidays and all, I would really reconsider how much time you want to spend in an environment where they have alcoholic beverages, because things like that, some sort of violent confrontation, are known to happen. He said, I was looking for a fight. That's what you do. Go to the I'm looking for trouble. They make songs about that. White people and black people, they make songs about, I'm going to the club and I'm going to elbow a nigger. I wish he would step on my foot. I wish he would. Look, Bill Russell told us about that 100 years ago. He said his dad and them, they would go to the club, rickety Louisiana, Monroe. Somebody put a quarter in the jukebox and they turn around and look and say, nigger, are you tapping your foot to my quarter? It's on and popping. That's Liquorland, man. That's the club. Tell that to the young people. Keep saying that. Sobriety would be best. This is why. They will have sobriety checkpoints out probably until the new year. You do not want to be outside. I've been at Liquorland for the past 3 hours or whatever. Somebody's, whatever, party, gathering, had a few drinks of this, and had a snort of this or whatever. Man, you're going to hop in the car. Man, you do not want to be under the influence. And now, now you bump into Sean W. Tonkin. I'm ready to F up a nigger, and you can't even process straight to make the best decision. Or a race soldier, badge or no. Sobriety would be best. Let's see. With that, they got 20. I'll just say quick, the 24-year-old Gilbert Fisher at LSU with his knife, and the young fella called his dad, and he's, oh, man. I'm not a parent. No qualifiers. That said, I think it is so critically important. Got to be honest with your children about white supremacy. But what I just said, that's what, hey, any of these confrontations, you could be dead in fight. And the exact same thing. Gilbert Fisher, he's at campus, LSU, Baton Rouge. Nigger. Guy said he didn't even, and I've said that. He said he had his headphones on, right? Which very popular. Many people do. I do it myself sometimes. Had his headphones on. I have said that. For years, in fact, you'll hear it compensatory call-in where I've said, we, unfortunately, it's horrible. It's horrible. We are in a system of white supremacy racism. Incidents like this happen all the time. Someone even pointed that out when we read Absolute Madness about Joseph G. Christopher, 22 caliber killer. Last year, one of the victims that he attacked in New York State, he did the same thing. He yelled out before he had a knife and stabbed them, "Nigra." And the black male heard this, and that gave them enough time to, evade, and they were able to get away, save their life maybe, just them being able to hear this. But, man, when you are out in public, you really want to have be aware of your surroundings. And he said it was broad daylight. This was not one. He said it was broad daylight. So I'm thinking, hey, what's the big deal? He's coming up and say something. Maybe he just wants to know what time it is or the directions or whatever it is. We are in a system of white supremacy, racism. You want to be aware of what is going on. If somebody comes up and is talking to you or whatever, be alert. This is a total stranger. I have no idea what your intentions are. What are you up to? You don't need to be getting real close to me and all of that. Say what you got to say, and let's keep it moving. It is horrible to have to say that, but I mean, there are so many examples of this sort of thing. In fact, the way it was explained, where the young fella said he called his dad, and his dad came, and then this race soldier stabbed his father, could have killed him, charged him with attempted murder. They should have, and a hate crime too, so-called. Why not the Emmett Till hate crime bill? How about that? But he called his dad. It reminded me, retired firefighter, when he told us his son got a flat tire, called his dad for help, and some random race soldier white dude comes up and is harassing them, and his son's like, whoa, this dude has got a gun. And retired firefighter gets there, and they're like, man, this white dude has got a gun. And he immediately calls the police. White guy took off. That's what I mean. Like, that sort of thing is so common, and you have to talk to your children honestly, because it's very light, especially like they're a young driver, young motorist. They're out, they could be stopped, they could have an accident, they could pull over for directions, use the phone, anything. Let them know you are in danger. You have no, same thing I keep saying, you don't know if the person's got a pipe bomb, a knife, a gun, all of the above. Man, I have to watch all of that? Like, he's up here threatening me and all that. I call my dad for help, and then he could have killed my dad. Like, Jesus Christ. That's our holiday to celebrate. We get to go to the hospital. Goes to the store, they said, threatening people. And what reminded me of what happened in Jacksonville. Remember that? Young white fella went to the black HBCU. They said he got shooed away. The black enforcement official saw that something was suspicious, alerted police, and then he went to the Family Dollar and killed 3 black people there. That's what it reminded me of. We said then, probably going to have more cases like this. I'll pause there. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let us know how you're getting through the holidays and all that jazz as well. Let's see. Folks with a hand up line should be open. Oh, man. Bay Area mom is with us. Maybe she's seen the albino coon, too. That's amazing. Folks who dialed in with a hand up, let us know.
Yes. I've seen the albino coon, and we have squirrels, too. They come through. I think they come through the drain, the little drain from the bay to where I am. Because I could just look outside. It's particularly, let's see, was it like April? I saw around April. And they're just roaming around. And they get fed over here. We feed them. Not me. But they feed them here. Yeah, they're fed. They get nice nuts and stuff. So, yeah, I don't know about at the lake, but they're treated very well over here. So, yeah, you're funny. They're very well respected over here, honestly. I'm telling the truth. There's lots of trees and stuff, too. They play, like, at the park over here, the white ones, so, yeah. The stabbing at, what's that, Louisiana State? The dad, the guy stabbed the dad. And then I think the young man said he was coming from off the college campus. So, and he got away, I guess. I don't remember if they caught him, but I know he got away. So then the guy said they're not even talking about it really. So it's too bad too, because he didn't even get a chance to get warned about the knife, and it's just too bad. You got to be careful. I'm sorry that happened to the man. I'm glad he's not hurt. I mean, you know, I know he's hurt, but I'm glad he didn't die. That's what I want to say. The prison video visits. It's always a come up. So I remember when I was younger, the video, the phone calls, they would charge, you know, for the guys to call, you collect, and then they kind of took over that, where they had it to where you had to go through this, whatever, this telecom or something to get for the prisoners to talk. They couldn't just call you right out. And now since the COVID, I think it was all designed to implement a lot of stuff. But with this COVID, now you can monitor the visits. So you can't really monitor all the visits like that. But if it's on video, you can monitor everything they say, and you can make money because it's $8 for 20 minutes to talk. They don't care about those kids. All our kids grew up at the county jail and pen. They didn't care about the kids. Well, mine couldn't go because it was too much. But I'm just saying, they didn't care about what the kids saw. The kids see all kind of stuff. The kids are committing crimes now because of the stuff that they see. They don't care about the kids seeing anything in the prison. I mean, there's nothing to see anyway at those jails, except for other inmates talking to other people that drove all those hours to come visit them. So it's interesting. They don't want you to have any contact, physical contact. They want everything via video or digital. I'll ponder on that some more another time. Rite Aid. So we have Rite Aid out here, and in the city, San Francisco, it's a little more thug life because they've been, you know, it's not just Rite Aid that they take stuff out of. They'll take stuff out of anywhere that, you know, if they need the stuff or want the stuff or it can be sold, they'll rob anything. But I didn't know about the facial recognition. That is creepy because I don't know who else has that, and they don't let you know that. That's interesting. And then it'd be at a pharmacy, and then Rite Aids are usually they're not really in white areas. They're something, you'll catch them by the hospitals on strips, but they're not. They're for us. And then a lot of them, the Rite Aid, they close them down, so you don't have any. I know in Oakland they shut the one by the doctors where the children's go, by the hospital, and where the children pediatricians are they can't go to that Rite Aid anymore to get their prescriptions filled. So now I'm wondering, with all those faces, the pictures that they have of people just going in and out just for anything, what did they do with that data before they were told to destroy it? And maybe that was only one store that had to destroy theirs. What about all the other ones that have your pictures and your face, and what are they doing with that stuff? So that's all I wanted to talk about, and thank you for taking my call. I'll mute my line.
Much obliged, Bay Area mom. Just because they said that the prison visits are traumatic for the children, when you said you didn't take your children for the visits because it was too much, when you said it was too much, was that it was too traumatic, or did you just, what did you mean when you said it was too much?
So when my daughter's dad, well, that's my son's dad too. So when the children's dad went to jail, it just seemed inappropriate. So I didn't want my daughter there because it just seemed like not an appropriate place, and she wanted to go with him. You know what I mean? So I remember one time when he went to prison, his uncle had took her there, and they said she cried because she wanted to stay with him. So it is traumatic. It is traumatic for the children, but the trauma is depending on who the inmate is. They normally want to go with the person behind bars or stay with the person behind bars more than something inappropriate going on in their surrounding area.
Got it. Much obliged. Yeah, that is traumatic in a different type of way. Yes. Much obliged, Bay Area mom. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, *61 if you have commentary to share.
May I be heard?
Lauren? Yes, ma'am.
Evening, everyone, and thank you for allowing me to speak. Kind of towards the beginning, they were talking about these TADs, these tax something districts, and they had what sounded like 3 black males on the program being interviewed. And one of them, it sounded like their title was a chief equity officer. I would like to know the job description of that position. And also, they were saying these pads were used to get rid of blight. I don't think blight was defined. And I think white people said something similar, when they ran highways through areas where black people reside and had so-called businesses. They would say the area was blighted. I guess that means it's Negroes there, and run a highway through it. So I think a definition on that term would be helpful, but it almost doesn't matter. White people would just say something is blighted if they wanted to and practice racism. And it's interesting that they got the black people on there talking about it. Claudine Gay, a couple of days ago, I got there is someone who writes kind of like a newsletter type of thing in the New York Times. His name is John McWhorter. And, I subscribe to it because he's supposed to be a linguist, and I thought it would be about words, but really isn't about that. The couple I've read, and I got one from him maybe a day or two ago, and he was talking about how Claudine Gay needed to be fired. And it just, it occurred to me, they said they would let her keep her job, but now they're getting non-white people to speak against Miss Gay. I don't know. So I did notice that because the lady on the program today, she sounded like also another non-white person. When white people were talking about, I don't know if they were white. Scientists were talking about the way people process sounds, like words and, our brain cells and, all of this. white people study everything. And I don't think I study enough. Let me see. The 38-year-old, I think it was Othel Moore Jr., who was killed. A white lady came on, and she said something about advocates for fair and humane treatment of offenders. I thought that was an interesting word choice. The people who were found guilty, reference Elijah McClain, it said they were guilty of criminally negligent homicide, and also they it said secondary assault for unlawful administration of drugs. It's hardly ever murder when white people kill black people. And then I noticed the newscasters who were talking about it. One sounded like a white male, and he said this is a pretty stiff verdict. That was interesting verbiage. And the white lady said the paramedics were just doing their job, and that's setting a tone. So, just sexual type innuendo and bringing color into it. I noticed that. The black male who had his headphones on and the white male chases him with a knife and he calls his father. In that segment, he said it kind of needs to be talked about a little more. I agree. Dr. Welsing talked about such things. I'm paraphrasing, I'm not quoting directly, but I remember her talking about like black males having a sort of conference to discuss that they were afraid of white people. I don't think it should just be black males. I think black people should discuss that we're afraid of white people, And it was a couple of things I saw in the news over the past week or so. There was a 24-year-old, what I think he's a white man. He was in Prague in the Czech Republic. He goes to a university, I think it's called Charles University, and kills 14 people, wounded 20 other people. They said they think he killed his father before he left the house. They didn't get his whole name. They put David K. But I noticed in the article it said they did not believe that the gunman's actions were connected to international or domestic terrorism. I don't know their definition of terrorism. And also, this white man who killed those 14 people, he said he was influenced or inspired by a young white girl. She's like 14 years old, and maybe a week or two ago, she killed 2 of her classmates in Russia, wounded like 5 others. Her name was Alina something, and the white man said, "She certainly did not kill enough. I will try to fix that." Also, St. Louis, they had a nursing home just suddenly closed down. Closed down so fast, the family members of the people who were in the nursing home, didn't even know where the patients were when the article was written. And also, you kind of talked about it on Neutralizing Workplace Racism, non-white children doing dangerous jobs. There was an article in the paper. The title of it was Children Risk Their Lives Building America's Roof. So it was on December the 13th, and they were non-white children. They were referred to as migrant children. The article was kind of long and just detailed the dangers of, what these children were doing. And that's all I have for now. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Much obliged, Lauren. I feel like I didn't get too shiftless with my checking of the news. There's so much happening, you can never really check it all. But just trying to be alert about things that are happening. I did see that report. Federal law bars anyone under 18 from roofing because it's so dangerous. But across the U.S., migrant, and I put in parentheses, non-white children do this work anyway. And they got pictures of these little, these folks would not be pale, fair-skinned, none of that. Lily white, none. They got them up on the roof. Get up there. You got it. You got it. You got it. Be glad you're not on the graveyard shift having to debone chicken thighs at 2 a.m. Hopefully you don't fall off the roof either. Incidentally, one of the folks that they did speak with at NPR on that report, scientists are using new technology to study the cells behind language comprehension. They talked about, wow, it seems like we might break down specific syllables and sounds, as opposed to whole sentences and all of that. One of them was Dr. Eddie Chang. Looks like he would be a non-white person. Non-white, non-black, but at least he, non-white person. At least include that one. But yeah, we definitely need more of the dark people studying a little teaspoon of everything. Let's see. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Gilbert Fisher was arrested. That's the white boy, or I guess can't say white boy, race soldier in Louisiana, went on campus and had his knife, stabbed black father and threatening folks, calling folks nigger and all the rest of it. He did get arrested, thankfully. Number again, 605-313-5164. The code 564-943 pound. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Other folks who dialed in, if we missed you totally, you have commentary to share. Irie? Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good evening. All right. So, to your point about don't replace white supremacy with love, I agree. I have experienced a great deal of discourtesy, hatred, maybe even this week by fellow victims of racism. And I understand completely why you don't want nobody to call you brother. Because there had been an incident between myself and someone that's a volunteer at the situation I told you all about. And the nonprofit, whatever it is. And I say whatever because it feels more like a cult. And there's certain conditioning that I didn't understand that had taken place because we were there out of our own volition, most of us, including myself, and then there was a brand involved and things changed and people didn't want to be accountable, and then I've been dishonored. I know Mr. Fuller said no one else can give you respect. So in that process of being mistreated, the founder, director set up some rules in which he said that we have to address each other with brother and sister. I would call sometimes to, get clarification on things or just with questions about what I was doing, from this paid position I was, recently put in, and he would answer the phone, "Hello, daughter." And I never took kindly to that anyway because I got a daddy, you know what I'm saying? He's transitioned, but I got one, I felt like that was not grooming, but it wasn't appropriate. I never really took to it, and I must say I wasn't brave enough until after I was mistreated the first time by a different person to say, "Hey, don't do that. Don't call me daughter. I got a father." And I also addressed the person that was mistreating me by Mr. I understand, Gus. I overstand. True albinism and whatever else is called, the other condition where things are white. My Arapaho friend sent me a text 2 days ago that a white buffalo was spotted somewhere in Oklahoma, and he sent an emoji with it, with his eyes, like the eyes wide open. He's like, this is not a good thing for Native people. That's not a good sign. So, you know, this fascination and love with albinism represents a type of maladaptiveness or malfeasance in nature in more ways than one. And I'm never excited to hear about everything I know for the most part, except for the cloud that's white, you know. And I'm not trying to be funny, but, you know, pus is white. That doesn't excite me. You know, white is white. They call it a whiteout when it blizzards. You know, I'm good on white everything right now because they're the reason why I'm going through what I'm going through as well. I think about that often, how we've been pit against each other. And, you know, now we got this white buffalo. Yay, the world's coming to an end, guys. Hooray. You know, I'm pissed. I'm sorry. So, breathing. I have a question for you all. It's about Willy Wonka, which, coming out of a slumber a couple days ago, somebody sent me a GIF in a text message with Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder, and it hit my head like Willy, aka penis, ding-a-ling, and then Wonka. I don't know what that means. You know, I don't speak German, if it's German or Slavic or whatever. I don't know, but I just know here it is in our face. They're, you know, pushing the penis agenda, and it took me, I don't know, about 20-some years to make that connection. But something in the movie from the 70s with Gene Wilder, I've always been befuddled and, like, boggled about. There's a scene where they go through a tunnel, and the tunnel is showing all kind of fluffed up stuff. And it's like a scene in particular where it looks like a giant millipede is crawling over some white person's face. And that stood out to me because I'm a victim. But my first exposure to that type of bug was from Reed B. Jackson's Centipede. So I thought they were cool, right? And, you know, it ain't no secret that I love the Jacksons. So I thought the bug was cool because of that video. But then years later, I saw this scene in Willy Wonka where this bug was crawling like all over somebody's face. And I'm like, ugh. And I was like, why is this in this movie? I just never understood. And then there's other vignettes of like insects in it while they're in the tunnel, which obviously they're practicing racism too, because it doesn't happen in the regular part of the chocolate factory. You know, it happens in this dark tunnel, you know, and then he kind of snaps into some type of trance and starts singing, is it raining, is it snowing, is a hurricane a blowing? And then he yells something, and then all of a sudden it stops. He's like, oh, we've made it to the next part of the chocolate factory. Isn't that great? Then we just have fun. I'm mad about it because it's stuff I enjoyed as a child that I understand was psychological warfare. I don't know how else to put it. I said before, I understand Sesame Street is one. I say again, and it's Christmas time, so I'm going to make this declaration outright. Please do not let your children watch anything with the Grinch. That is a demon. That is some type of demon manifestation. And the cartoons from the 70s definitely have some type of psycho, they doing stuff. Like they even strobe light in a couple of the scenes in Halloween is Grinch Night. It's not cool. So I just want to my PSA. But then I'm just wondering about this. I'm really mad. Just in general this week and over the past year, I'm just evaluating how my mind has been tampered, whether I wanted to admit it or not. And I'm just sorting it out. You know what I'm saying? But that's what I was wondering. I don't want to ramble. You know, I pray for everybody to be well. You know, whatever you're going to do on Monday, I ain't doing nothing. You know, thanks for letting all of us purge, Gus, for real, because honestly, I don't really have many people to talk to. I have a couple more people I talk to that are counter-racist, but other than that, in like real life, not really. So, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, Irie. I guess with the workplace situation, neutralizing workplace racism, Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. She's told us about that situation before with her job situation. That I talked about that before, right? When you get on these jobs and they use these old metaphors and such, that this is a family and, you know, brother and sister, and that daughter is way out of control. I'm not, that's a little bit unused. Son, like are you supposed to be the dad, the mom? As you said, I have a dad. I was not looking for a father. I was just looking for a job. Like that is, all of that is just really, really, she said, I did not know I signed up for a cult. Like what in the world? Like that I didn't understand at first. She said, this is like a cult environment. It's like, what? What do you mean? Like, oh, daughter, I got it. Yes, that is, yes, grooming for some sort of cult activity or whatever. Like, what is going on here? Crazy. In a work environment, that sort of thing. Anytime you're not being just called by your name, it doesn't even have to be Sir, Ma'am per se, but Irie, you know, if we're on a first name basis, that's fine. But daughter, son, even brother, like in a workplace, like, man, I get disgruntled about that here on the program. And we're not in an office setting per se, but man, we had to fill out an application. We are not brothers. Like, man, come on. We had to go through an interview process, please. That is, anyway, yeah, much of that's just, in my view, black self-respect, just about titles and such, and how people are going to be talked to, and all the rest of it. Anywho, let's see. Other folks who dialed in, number again, 605-313-5164, the code 564943 pound, press star 61 if you would like to participate. Let's see. Other folks who dialed in with a hand up, if we missed you totally, line should be open. Let's see.
Greetings, everyone.
Retired firefighter in Florida?
Yes, I have thought about the word love quite a bit, and so far I've come to the conclusion for me to use it, it's too broad of a term. It can mean a lot of things that are not constructive on quote unquote what one loves to do, or, you know, in some other context. And it doesn't serve too well with my quote unquote love life. But nevertheless, I very restrictive on using that term. As opposed, I use the term care. Care is more of a situation. I can't think about too many non-constructive things that can be associated with care or caring, you know, whether it's caring about another person or some sort of constructive action. Yeah, those are my thoughts so far on that. I have recently, over the course of several weeks, several months actually, having constructive exchange views with my 4 other siblings. It ends up being racism, white supremacy. But what I do in the conversation is actually focus on justice or things that are correct, as opposed to using the terminology, like white supremacy or even racism. I speak on the correctness, what I think is correctness within the system, as far as justice is concerned. Talked to one of my ex-players actually a couple of hours ago, and he was telling me about the business that he has. He's into the food business, and I think he has some delicatessens. I actually been to one of them several times. He played in the National Football League for at least 10 to 12 years, and he's doing pretty well. I would figure, based on what he was saying. He actually has contracts with the Miami Dolphins as well as with the Detroit Lions. Detroit Lions was the last team that he played with. He's doing well. I from time to time run into unplanned to a lot of these young fellows that I have coached over a period of time, and they remind me basically what my efforts were, which is to use that dangerous sport as a platform to exchange with them on things that are much more important than playing football or any sport or any activity under the people activity of entertainment. And I guess through that time that we had together, they appreciated it in some sort of way, because a lot of places that I go, I run into people that I have experience with. I put it that way. I have been involved with some discussion on how to be hired as a firefighter, and actually at least 2 of guys that I have worked with over the years have initiated that plan and have been on Miami-Dade County Fire Department now, based on going to a local junior college down here that actually has a fire college within that junior college, and you just go through that course, get the certification to whereas you will become a certified firefighter in the state of Florida, and then go about the means of getting your emergency medical technician license, and that would make you eligible for any fire department in the state of Florida. Unlike from how I was hired without knowing anything about what it is to be a firefighter. They called it getting hired off the streets. That was the nickname for that. But what they do now, in order to make it quite difficult in order to get hired, that you need to come to that fire department already with those certifications. And that's basically what's been going on for this week, and that's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Much obliged, retired firefighter in Florida. Spectacular. Black people sharing constructive information to help other black people with employment, be more informed about a career, sometimes even be thinking, because sometimes I know, we've heard that from other folks where they weren't necessarily thinking about a career in being a firefighter or law enforcement or something like that. to even get them thinking in that direction. And then, you know, what certifications or skills would be good to acquire if you're going to think about that sort of career, especially the jobs that have good benefits and all of that, pension, all that good stuff, where you can get that and then retire and put your feet up, all that good stuff. Like, oh yeah, white people generally do a great job at making it difficult for black people to access those jobs and or to even know the qualifications, all of that when they have openings. So bravo, that is much more important to be chatting about that sort of thing than, oh man, you think the Ravens gonna do it this year? What you think? Who gonna win the bowl game? Like, oh man, come on. Way more important things to be talking about. That is spectacular. That's why I said workplace. We can all just be talking about the workplace. What was our experience? Sharing information about our workplace and what have you to help other non-white people who are employed or seeking employment, whatever it happens to be. Awesome. Let's see. If you have other folks that we missed totally, number 605-313-5164, the code 564943#. Press star 61 if you would like to participate. Do not wait till the last moment if you have any commentary you need to share. Any folks that we missed. I think retired firefighter said that he also tries to be cautious about the term love and using care. That's easier to deal with, not as vague, just toss love, care, much easier to deal with. But yeah, I would again replace white supremacy with love and justice, meaning the same thing. We don't have love, even if it's just to get people to think. What? We don't have love. We have racism. In fact, a whole system of white supremacy racism. That's why we don't have love. Even if it just sparks conversation to get a few people to pause. At least I care about you for this week. Like, there we go. Making a little bit of progress based on what we heard from Ari and all of it. Like, that is progress. Let's stop all that lying and all the rest of it. Like, yeah, because you got coon tendencies. So, yeah, we won't quite say love you. Care about you until Tuesday. Then we'll check in. Like, right on. Now we have better expectations about all of this, and we are not as vague with that L word. Speaking of Tuesday, we'll be here talking about labor, black managers, and their not experience of love and all the love that the black managers get, but all the racism that black managers experience. That's what we'll talk about on Tuesday, the day after Christmas, so-called, December 26, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Listener-supported counter-racist radio. Invest. If you think the C.O.W.S is constructive, hit the blog racism-notes.blogspot.com. racism-notes.blogspot.com. PayPal button in the top right corner. You'll see the links beneath the button for Cash App, PayPal, as well as Venmo. The Cash App address, cash.app/$the C.O.W.S. Huge thanks to all the folks who kept us on the air 15 years. Hopefully we have been mostly accurate, help non-white people, victims of white supremacy, grasp what it means to be white, what white supremacy racism is, how it works, and things we can do to solve this problem. Not having your child in front of the television. Oh man, I said, man, that TV, that's what I said, if you're going to have children, don't have a TV in your house. Now, people want to say that you're radical and revolutionary. Tell them that. They see you weeping and we're going to miss all the good times, Super Bowls, Real Housewives. binging on Netflix. Oh, we getting rid of our big 100-inch screen. The neighbors will come out like, what? You're getting rid of the 100-inch screen? Why? About to have a baby. Can't have him growing up addicted to TV like I said, what? What? You're not going to let... What? You old radical Negro. What? They not going to let him... Oh, my, she talking about don't let him watch The Grinch. What? We going to see the new Willy Wonka right now. Victims guaranteed qualified. And I told you, a whole lot of the things that are on television, the main thing is the white supremacy racism, but also they do promote a lot of unhealthy eating. About to have a whole lot of people waste time, words, talking about resolutions, and I'm going to lose 20 pounds, and exercise, and gym membership, and all that'll be hogwash by the time we get ready to eat all that good chocolate for February 14. A lot of that is greatly influenced by television. It's not like when they show all these holiday movies, if we're going to sit around and watch Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory and the Grinch and all, it's not like they're showing people that are sitting around the Christmas tree eating carrots, kale, bok choy, mushrooms, Brussels sprout. That's not what they're eating. That's not what you all are fixing to eat for the most part, I suspect. That's another big reason, not having the TV on. Incidentally, I did just see a report yesterday, brand new in fact. They showed a correlation between red meat consumption and diabetes. I'm not a doctor or a healthcare expert, but wow, that did catch my attention because I was thinking more like all the sugar and processed white sugar and all the rest of it, but they said red meat. And in fact, it wasn't even a whole lot. It was 2 servings of red meat just on a per weekly basis. People who had 2 servings of red meat per week, and then people who had less than 2 servings of red meat. And the people who had the 2 servings of red meat more likely to have type 2 diabetes. I said, wow, that would be another reason. Eat more of those fruits and vegetables. Get you some butternut squash, some broccoli, some eggplant. Leave those burgers and steaks, ribs. Leave all of that alone. Country ham. Oh, used to eat. I know that's not red meat, but woof. Tear all of that up along with the chitlins and everything. Leave all of that alone. Fruits, veggies. Got to do something for talking about jobs, racism, eating better. Like I said, get a blender. That would be a big tip for folks who are struggling how to get more fresh fruits and veggies. Get a quality blender. You can do the smoothies and make all kinds of goodies right there. Soups, homemade soups and everything right there. Get in those fruits and veggies. Get away from all of that processed foods. Help us really replace white supremacy with justice, because they want us in poor health in so many ways. We will wrap up there. Again, if you are doing all the holidays and such, sobriety would be best. They have a whole lot of what they call domestic dispute, conflict incidents, particularly around this time of year. Folks are mad, spent all that money and got some spiked eggnog and punch and all the rest of it. End up getting into a brawl and gotta call the man, the woman, to come and calm things down. Sobriety would be best. If you gotta go to a shindig, or you don't have to, but if you choose to do so, be sober. If it's going to be white people there, I'd have to even think about going. But yeah, I would think Liquorland, Mike Rohn Jr., think about that. If it's just going to be non-white people, I say get to one location, stay there. That way you can leave sober, safely the following day, bright, sunny. Sobriety checkpoints will probably be in effect for the next week. Tell young drivers that. Be alert when you're out and about. You do not want to have that. Whoa, what is going on at 11 o'clock? Yeah. Creator, we ask that you help us remain patient with other black people, victims of white supremacy. We ask that you help us remain patient with ourselves. Remind us to demonstrate the highest levels of black self-respect at all times, in all places, each and every time we are in contact with another black person. It has been time. Replace white supremacy with justice immediately. No name calling, no gossiping, no throwaway offspring. Don't lie to your children either. That's a big, they got all this white tubby person coming down the chimney. Don't lie to your children. It's a whole lot of hard-working victims of white supremacy for the Postal Service and other parcel delivery services, delivering packages and boxes aplenty all over the known universe. Some fictitious race soldier cannot get credit for all of that. Do not lie to your children. Cal signing out. Thanks all for tuning in.
Nigga, you so brainwashed.
I'm a victim, brother.
Problem. You're a victim.
Man, I'm a victim of 400 years of conditioning.
Shut up.
The man has programmed my conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
Even my conditioning has been conditioned.